Warrior Lore, Chapter 3784. Call. As the hand of soul touched the totem, a phoenix cry that Xiao Hua was both familiar and unfamiliar with rang out from the totem. A huge sky-blue phoenix phantom flew out of the totem. Inside the phoenix phantom, there was a bloodline that looked like scarlet jade embedded in it. Under the power of the stars and the moon, it gave off a terrifying aura that wasn't the slightest bit inferior to the true dragon bloodline that Ao Zhan had stimulated just now. That sharp, proud, and unparalleled primeval aura instantly filled the entire altar. Withdraw, Xiaohua reprimanded in a low voice. The hand of soul gently sank into the phoenix phantom and landed on one of the sparkling and translucent strands of blood. With just one touch, the phoenix phantom exploded with a bang, and a ball of sky-blue light soared into the sky and pounced on Xiaohua. Xiaohua didn't panic, and even felt extremely warm from the aura that pounced on him. However, when the light was only 1,000 feet away, Xiaohua's body trembled slightly. It was as if he was resisting it, as if he was looking down on it. His entire body strangely retreated, and the moment he retreated, the soul thread smoothly extracted that bit of blood from his body. Just like before, as soon as the blood was separated, it immediately turned into another small phoenix phantom and was about to enter the bigger one. Xiaohua waved his large sleeve and unceremoniously put it away in his space. As for the phoenix phantom, it paused slightly when Xiaohua retreated and then shrank back into the totem. It looks like my body has something to do with this phoenix bloodline. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes as he looked at the phoenix totem and pondered to himself. Otherwise, there's no way I'm familiar with this bloodline, and there's no way my phoenix dharma body would look like a phoenix. Also, although I've never reached the top of the altar, I already know that the supreme holy bloodline is up there. Restraining his impulsive body, Xiaohua's gaze followed the altar from top to bottom. Unfortunately, he only looked for a moment before he became impatient. His mind entered his space, and after a brief discussion with the green-robed Xiaohua, he clapped his hand, and Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede flew out. When the two demons saw the altar, their bodies immediately trembled like sifting chaff, as if an innate fear had sprung up in their hearts. "Look at your little faces." Xiaohua slapped Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede and shouted, "No matter what, you are still demons who have been separated into yin and yang in this old man's space. Even that lifeless transcendent treasure could become a capital spiritual treasure. How could you all be inferior to them? Go. Let's see what kind of opportunity you've been waiting for." Xiaohua had originally intended to give this opportunity to Fujiwen. However, looking at this altar and the entire relic world, there was simply no place where Fujiwen could take advantage of, even if the bloodline on this altar could be used by Fujiwen. Xiaohua recalled that Tao Wu was a member of the Immortal Palace and instantly dispelled this thought. It might not be a big deal for Fujiwen to know some Taoist magic, but if he had the blood of the demon tribe, how could the Immortal Palace rest assured about his marriage with Momo? Thus, Xiaohua let out Little Silver and the others, who hadn't planned to come out. It was just that he had been a little worried earlier. After all, the bloodlines of Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede might not be as good as that of the Stag King. However, green-robed Xiaohua vowed that he had already seen the blood of the true dragon and the vermilion bird which Xiaohua had put into his space, and felt that Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede, who had been separated into yin and yang, wouldn't have any problems. Even if they had to suffer a little, they would definitely be able to absorb the ancient bloodlines of these two demons. Only then did Xiaohua feel at ease letting the two demons out. Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede trembled at first, but then they slowly gathered their courage. Encouraged by Xiaohua, they flew down a little gingerly, each searching for a familiar aura. "There's still you." After sending off Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede, Xiaohua took out Little Thunder, who was still in a daze, and flicked his head to wake him up. Sure enough, when Little Thunder opened his eyes, he was full of energy. He didn't need Xiaohua's reminder at all as he flew towards a totem not far away that wasn't particularly similar to the Thunder Beast. Looking at the lightning flashing on the totem, Little Thunder cried out as he fell into a blood-red thunderbolt. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "In the end, you have to find your own opportunities and look for your own bloodline. You can naturally look for what you can, but how would I know what you can't? It looks like I can only look for them one by one." That's right, in Xiao Hua's space, in addition to Xiao Lei, there was also the dream dragonfly butterfly, the iceworm king egg, and even the water pattern butterfly. These were monsters, but Xiao Hua couldn't guarantee that their ancestors would be the same as them. Moreover, Xiao Hua also knew that there was more than one altar in the legacy world, so their bloodline might not necessarily be here. See, nine-tailed fox? Just as Xiao Hua was looking down the altar, a nine-tailed fox totem suddenly appeared in front of him. Although he had never seen this demonic beast before, his heart suddenly jumped as soon as he saw the totem, as if this totem was extremely important to him. What's going on? Xiao Hua was a little puzzled. He closed his eyes and pondered for a moment before he had a slight idea. Damn it! It feels like the karma spell I used near Broken Heart Mountain earlier. At that time, although I couldn't predict Fujiwen's fate and the spell wasn't perfect, it still left a trace. It looks like I need to collect this nine-tailed fox bloodline, but a mere drop doesn't seem to have any meaning. Xiao Hua was in a difficult position again. Do I have the ability to collect it completely? Could it be that I'm mistaken? Maybe that's the only way. Xiao Hua looked at the white bones next to the nine-tailed fox totem and made a decision in his heart. Immediately, Xiao Hua no longer dared to be negligent. He searched layer by layer and finally found the totem of the dream sea butterfly, the iceworm king's egg, and other totem on the lower level of the altar. Moreover, to Xiao Hua's surprise, except for the water pattern butterfly, which had a little accident and almost exploded to death, everything else went smoothly. Each and every one of them was slowly being reborn in the blood mist. Of course, in addition to these little things, there was also Dai in Xiao Hua's space, facing a little white goose that could reveal the secret of his space at any time. Xiao Hua didn't dare to take her out. Although Xiao Hua saw a totem that was very similar to her on the altar, he only dared to collect a little bit of blood essence. If there was a chance in the future, he could give it to Dai. Since these little things were absorbing the ancient bloodline on the altar, Xiao Hua had no choice but to wait. The greedy Xiao Hua simply flew to the top of the altar and urged the soul thread and the secret technique of the dragon clan to collect them one by one from top to bottom. It seemed that if it was possible, the greedy Xiao Hua even wanted to move the entire altar from the legacy world to his space. Of course, Xiao Hua wasn't just thinking about collecting the blood essence of these big ancient demons. He was also looking at the distribution of the white bones. After all, this altar was so high and so big that it was impossible for every level to be protected by white bones. Sure enough, when Xiao Hua painstakingly flew to the middle of the altar, those huge white bones had already disappeared and were replaced by other white bones and other strange demon artifacts. After an unknown amount of time, Xiao Hua was enjoying himself and didn't know how hard it was. It wasn't until Little Silver cheerfully jumped onto him that he broke away from the joy of his harvest. When he saw Little Silver's appearance, he couldn't help but stare blankly. Little Silver didn't look any different from before, but the feeling he gave Xiao Hua was very different. Little Silver had been clever and lovable before, and even cute. Now, Little Silver gave off a vast and enormous feeling. Although his body was still so small, there was an inexplicable sharpness in Xiao Hua's gaze, which stung his eyes a little. Damn it! Xiao Hua sighed with emotion in his heart. As expected of the primeval bloodline, it's only been a moment, but it's already been reborn. If this little spirit mouse is already like this, then what about the vermilion bird and the dragon? This way, this Xiao is even more looking forward to the supreme holy bloodline. Little Silver landed on Xiao Hua, his little eyes already beginning to narrow. Xiao Hua knew that the power of the bloodline had already taken effect, and Little Silver was likely going to advance again. Thus, he hurriedly put Little Silver away and stopped his diligent harvesting. He turned around and put the water-patterned butterfly, the iceworm king egg, and so on that he had absorbed the primeval bloodline into his space one by one. As for Little Lei, Xiao Hua really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This guy had long become muddle-headed after absorbing the bloodline, and even in his muddle-headed state, he still hugged the white bone on the altar tightly and refused to let go, as if he knew it was something good. After that, Xiaohua continued to harvest with extreme patience and perseverance. When he finished harvesting all the primeval bloodlines on the altar, even someone as strong as Xiaohua felt a little dizzy. After all, this was delicate work, and couldn't be carried out in large quantities at the same time using divine abilities. Using embroidery over and over again was really a cruel test for martial artists who brandished spears and staffs. With hard work comes a harvest. Xiaohua stretched lazily and raised his eyes to look at the altar that stretched all the way to the sky. He himself couldn't believe that he had actually walked through it from top to bottom. Sometimes, a person's greed is also the driving force behind their progress. Other people's business is done. Now, it's time to look at this Xiao's own fortune. Xiaohua's heart couldn't help but burn. He raised his eyes to look at the tall altar and walked up step by step. The top of the altar was somewhat similar to the peak of an ordinary mountain, but it was quite big. Xiaohua looked at it with his naked eyes and saw that it was at least several hundred li in size. Xiaohua stood on the white bone altar and saw the 10,000 Fei diagram gushing out from the center of the altar at a glance. At this time, it was still full of demonic qi, and totems of great demons were flying all over the sky. However, these totems couldn't cover the stars in the sky. Under the starlight, the images of the great demons were even more distinct, revealing their all-powerful spirit. White jade capital in the sky, 12 buildings and 5 cities. Immortals touch my head, and I'll be immortal. Xiaohua looked at such a clear starry sky and saw such a heroic great demon totem. He couldn't help but recite, although this Xiao doesn't know where the immortals are, with the path to heaven, not to mention immortals, this Xiao can even see gods and Buddhas. This Xiao doesn't need other people to touch my head and be immortal. This Xiao wants to touch other people's heads and teach them immortality. -13. Chapter 3785. Thinking of this, a kind of indescribable pride was born in his heart. The engraved totems under his feet surged with the power of the stars and moon as well as demonic energy. Amidst the rising demonic energy, the light beam of the stars and moon fell with a loud bang. Amidst this brilliance, Xiaohua's body suddenly trembled. Following the pride in Xiaohua's heart, the 13,200 small dots in his body couldn't help but jump in joy. Roar! Xiaohua looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. A soaring aura rushed out from his head. Jiji! The sound of a phoenix's cry resounded in his body. It seemed to be coming from the 13,200 small dots. Moreover, along with this phoenix cry, a kind of thin vortex appeared in the center of each small dot. These vortexes were like small mouths that crazily swallowed the power of the stars and moon that fell on Xiaohua's body. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The stars in the entire legacy world suddenly shook. Every star emitted a brilliant brilliance. Hundreds of millions of rays of brilliance rushed into the vast sky and into the 132 whirlpools. Xiaohua's several hundred zhang tall transcendence golden body emitted brilliant starlight, and it was precisely competing with the stars in the sky. At this moment, it seemed that only Xiaohua's transcendence golden body was the only one in the entire legacy world. Jie! Another earth-shattering sound came from this star. Xiaohua's transcendence golden body began to slowly transform. The 13,200 vortexes seemed to have broken free from their shackles and shook cheerfully. A phoenix that was thousands of feet in size flapped its wings and transformed into a phoenix. Moreover, along with the input of the power of the stars and moon, this phoenix's transcendence golden body grew bigger and bigger. It was no less than 10,000 feet. Haha, refreshing, refreshing. Xiaohua's unusually arrogant voice came from the phoenix. A phoenix rises with the wind in a day, soaring 90,000 miles in the sky. When the wind stops, it can still sweep away the water of Zhongming. When people see me, they laugh coldly when they see me. Father Xian is afraid of the younger generation. Husband Xian is not young. This Xiao is so unhindered. This is why I'm a hero of this generation. This Xiao has such a magical ability that I can turn the clouds and rain with a flip of my hand. Fast, fast. Soon after, the phoenix Xiaohua flapped its wings and flew to the center of the altar. The phoenix Xiaohua was already able to see clearly from the high ground. The altar was covered with totem demon characters. Those totem demon characters were like great demons. They surrounded the center of the altar and worshipped. At a glance, it was impossible to tell how many totem demon characters there were. In the center of these totem demon runes, there was a crystal object that was flowing with colorful lights. Strange demonic clouds and light flashed, and the array diagram of 10,000 demons came out from this light screen. Hiss. Is this the bloodline of the absolute saint? Phoenix Xiaohua couldn't help but be shocked. The thousand Fei diagram that could break the heaven's punishment prison crystal was nothing more than the flickering light screen of the absolute saint bloodline. Then this absolute saint bloodline. How powerful was it? There was no need to think too much. As long as Phoenix Xiaohua moved his phoenix claws, he would know. Jie. Unfortunately, there was no time for Xiaohua to hesitate at this moment. The phoenix's body was now burning hot, and it pounced toward the crystal-like object. Phoenix Xiaohua originally thought that it would encounter some kind of obstruction, or even some kind of restriction, but who knew that when the phoenix's body flew close enough, that crystal-like object didn't move at all. No, it's a little strange. Xiaohua secretly pondered. Such an absolute saint bloodline is an object of heaven and earth. How could it not be guarded? Moreover, I'm not the first one to come here. Could it be that there are no other demons approaching? How come there isn't even a bone here? Just as Xiaohua was hesitating, the phoenix's body moved again. Those 1,3,200 little dots emitted strange vibrations, and the fluctuations immediately condensed into a beam that rushed toward the crystal-like object that was close at hand. Amidst the 1,3,200 different vibrations, that crystal-like object instantly melted, and it was precisely the shape of a drop of blood. Roar, roar. Once the drop of blood formed, countless strange roars resounded. Countless powerful auras were born from the drop of blood, and the stars that filled the sky were instantly extinguished under the vibration. It was as if they were extremely afraid of this absolute saint aura. What was even crazier was that a monstrous storm was set off in the entire legacy world. Countless airflows and countless remnant wills flew out from various places and pounced toward this drop of blood, as if they wanted to get a share of this drop of blood. Caw. The phoenix Xiaohua once again let out a clear cry. One after another, extremely unruly and ferocious auras actually rushed out from the 1,3,200 small dots, forming a huge vortex. Not only did it crush the incoming remnant thoughts, it even gave birth to a huge phantom of a phoenix, firmly protecting the entire altar. Boom. At the same time the phoenix phantom covered the altar, a deafening sound suppressed all movements. All the airwaves, all the remnant wills, and even everything in the legacy world disappeared. Only the altar was left between heaven and earth. Outside the altar was the phoenix phantom, and outside the phantom was an incomparably huge copper cauldron. Huh, Heavenly Phoenix, why are you here? Suddenly, an extremely grand aura was born in Phoenix Xiaohua's mind. This voice's intonation and pronunciation were extremely strange. Phoenix Xiaohua had never heard it before, but he was able to understand the meaning of these words. I didn't expect you to actually come. Since that's the case, it seems like you've also thought it through. You have decided to do this? Phoenix Xiaohua opened his mouth, but inside the copper cauldron, he couldn't move at all. Even his thoughts came to a standstill. He was simply unable to think about the meaning contained in this voice. At this moment, that huge body violently shook. It seemed like it was very dissatisfied with this kind of confinement. However, Xiaohua didn't know whether this kind of vibration was a kind of hint or words, because after the huge phoenix phantom shook, that kind of confinement suddenly weakened, and that strange voice was born again. Before you, many of my demon race's brave warriors had already tried to come here, but none of them succeeded. Since you're willing to take on this mission, then come. Along with the disappearance of the voice, the confinement also disappeared. However, the nearby space immediately became blazing hot. An indescribable madness was born from the blood droplet in front of him. Even more so, countless tyrannical consciousnesses rushed out from within, instantly drowning Xiaohua's consciousness. Damn it! Suddenly, Xiaohua finally understood. The so-called Supreme Saint bloodline was probably the inheritance left behind by countless great demons in ancient times. These great demons' consciousnesses and inheritances fought on this altar and finally fused together to form the so-called Supreme Saint bloodline, right? And he had racked his brains to collect all the true bloodlines on the altar, but in fact, it wasn't even comparable to a tenth of this Supreme Saint bloodline. Xiaohua felt that something was wrong. All the consciousnesses here were many times stronger than him. His mind saw that the situation was not good and immediately escaped into the space. Boom! The entire space was shaking, violently swaying without end. Good boy. Green-robed Xiaohua moved in front of Jade Archive Xiaohua and asked mysteriously, "Fellow Taoist, this body of ours really has a history?" "Damn it, don't ask me." Jade Archive Xiaohua waved his hand and said with a bitter smile, "I also don't know what's going on. I already can't remember everything clearly. Who knows what the origin is?" "Oh, wait a moment." Just when green-robed Xiaohua was about to speak again, Jade Archive Xiaohua's expression suddenly changed. He only spoke half a sentence and immediately sat cross-legged in the space, facing the sky. Strands of fine lines came from outside the space, and howls like the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves came from those fine lines. Even fragments of the desolate era's catalog were faintly born from these fine lines. "Good boy." Green-robed Xiaohua's face showed understanding, and he cried out, "I knew it. How could this phoenix's body be so daring?" So, this was his plan. Green-robed Xiaohua knew that in this space, there was nothing that Jade Archive Xiaohua couldn't do. If this kind of consciousness fusion was outside the space, Xiaohua would definitely not be able to complete it. But in Jade Archive Xiaohua, it was not a particularly dangerous thing. So he looked for a moment, hummed a song, and walked away. If Jade Archive Xiaohua had the time now, he would definitely hear the song that green-robed Xiaohua was humming. "Little sister, you sit at the bow." However, how could Jade Archive Xiaohua have the time to be distracted at this time? Every fine line that came from outside the space was a desolate era's catalog that contained countless information. Each desolate era's catalog was the growth history of an desolate era's great demon, and each desolate era's catalog was the inheritance of an desolate era's demon clan. What Xiaohua saw in the myriad demon diagram was only the prelude of these catalogs, and it couldn't be less. Such a huge amount of information rushed into Jade Archive Xiaohua's head at a terrifying speed. If this was not inside the space, how could Xiaohua bear it? Inside Phoenix Xiaohua's body, there were exactly 1,3,200 small dots that produced the same amount of suction force. Each of the suction force also frantically pounced on each of the inherited bloodlines. At that mysterious moment, all of the bloodlines came into contact with all of the small dots. A kind of indescribable brilliance abruptly emerged from Phoenix Xiaohua's body. It was even more dazzling than the previous stars, even more resplendent than the previous starry sky. Phoenix Xiaohua shrunk to the size of a speck of dust, and the legacy realm also became insignificant. Phoenix Xiaohua was so huge that one couldn't look up at it, and the legacy realm was also incomparably huge. All kinds of strange, all kinds of mysteries, one after another, appeared on Phoenix Xiaohua's body. It was unknown how many years had passed in this world. -13. Chapter 3786. Inside the space, Jade Archive Xiaohua's figure also changed from time to time, and also emitted strange fluctuations. These fluctuations spread throughout the space, not only falling on the starry sky, but also on many resting demonic beasts. But suddenly, Jade Archive Xiaohua's figure suddenly stopped, and the fine lines that swept through the space suddenly disappeared. Xiaohua opened his eyes, and starlight flashed in his eyes. He looked at the sky and said in surprise, "How in the end, it actually concluded into a totem? This is the task that the voice mentioned?" In that instant, Jade Archive Xiao Hua felt as if he had been tricked. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't depict the totem, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't write it down. However, the appearance of the totem was in his mind. In the mind of Jade Archive Xiao Hua, who could control the entire space, this was absolutely unimaginable. If there was nothing strange about it, then it would be the real strangeness. Phoenix Xiao Hua, you really got I into trouble. Jade Archive Xiao Hua was extremely helpless. At this time, how could he not know the strangeness of his phoenix body? Also, the origin of the 132 million small dots in his body? His primordial spirit had already controlled the body, but the body was really strong, and it inevitably affected his primordial spirit. Forget it. Forget it. Jade Archive Xiao Hua helplessly shook his head. I have encountered many strange things, haven't I? When the Jade Archive Xiao Hua exited the space, the entire altar appeared high up in the sky again. His 10,000 feet tall body had returned to its original state. Inside his body, the phoenix Xiao Hua was extremely weak, as if a person had been trampled on by thousands of horses. Looking at his body again, it was no different from before, but Xiao Hua was very clear that he was no longer the same as before. Just with this body alone, not to mention the hidden immortal continent, even in the 1,000 demonic sacred realm, no demonic beast would dare to compare with him. Of course, as Aozhan said, obtaining the bloodline only allowed him to step on the road to becoming a saint, but to really become a saint, he still needed to cultivate in the future. A true dragon bloodline could make a demonic beast a saint. Then what about the 132 million bloodlines condensed into a saint bloodline? What would it make Xiao Hua become? This seemed to be the goal of Xiao Hua's body in the future. This may be explained in the Chaos Scroll outside the Soul Cultivation Hall. Xiao Hua glanced at his body, then looked at the phoenix Xiao Hua, who was in a weak slumber. Xiao Hua then raised his head to look at the starry sky. All kinds of starlight were strangely dim, as if they had been ravaged. Looking further into the distance, although Xiao Hua couldn't see much clearly, he could clearly sense that all living things in the legacy world were still full of vitality. They had their own lives. Everything that happened at the altar didn't particularly affect them. Sometimes, the ignorant are fearless. Ignorance is also a blessing. Xiao Hua sighed lightly and raised his hand. His large hand transformed into several hundred and grabbed towards the several hundred white bones on the altar. The white bones that were trying their best to resist were now very obedient. Even the altar didn't have any reaction. All the white bones were taken into Xiao Hua's space. Xiao Hua didn't look at them carefully. He raised his hand again and grabbed the 9-tailed fox totem with his 5 fingers. Gigi. On the totem, a blood-colored little fox cried out a few times in fear, then obediently turned into a small ball of blood and fell into Xiao Hua's hand. Xiao Hua also took it into the space. When Xiao Hua finished doing all this and wanted to think again, boom, the same huge light pillar fell from the sky and covered Xiao Hua's body. Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he hurriedly took out the token. Buzz buzz. The token flashed in the light pillar, and the light pillar also moved in the sky. In a moment, a huge force lifted Xiao Hua up. Obviously, it wanted to send Xiao Hua back to the altar in Songlongzi's cave mansion. But at this moment, roar! A huge dragon roar came from below Xiao Hua. A huge dragon suddenly appeared not far from the altar and rushed into the light pillar. Damn it! So it's this guy. Why isn't he dead yet? Xiao Hua was slightly surprised. When he saw the dragon rushing to his feet, he suddenly realized. Isn't this the dragon that attacked Ao Qian before? Xiao Hua thought that it had already escaped far away. Even if it was hiding in the surroundings, the change in the altar should have already crushed it to death. Who knew that it was still safe and sound? Xiao Hua was surprised, but he didn't feel nervous. He reached out and grabbed at the huge force. However, before he could grab the dragon's body, the dragon's aura blocked his hand, and a numb feeling came from his hand. This Xiao's body has just merged with the holy bloodline, so it's very weak. Xiao Hua understood and secretly cursed. I'm afraid I can't subdue this dragon here. While speaking, Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. As he urged his magic power, a light pillar shot towards the huge dragon's head. Roar! The huge dragon saw that the light pillar was like a horse, and a flickering halo appeared at the dragon's horn. It actually condensed into a several zhang large shield that blocked the light pillar. Clang! The light pillar was blocked by the shield, and it was reflected back and hit the light pillar in the sky. Boom! The light pillar suddenly widened, and the strength suddenly increased. Xiao Hua and the huge dragon were immediately sucked in, and the light pillar instantly turned into a star-shaped whirlpool and disappeared. Only at this time did the heaven-reaching altar let out a huge roar and gradually sank into the ground, waiting for another descendant of the demon race to come with the token. Where is this? Xiao Hua was sucked in by the light pillar, and his eyes slightly shook. He was actually in the void. Xiao Hua scanned with his divine sense, but he couldn't see the boundary of the space. And the huge dragon that was fighting with him also disappeared. After waiting for a while with his divine sense and soul awareness, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Damn it, this evil dragon. Why are you causing trouble? If you want to come out, just tell me. There's no need to sneak attack. You have enmity with the East Sea Dragon Palace, not with me. I'm too lazy to care about your business. Now, this Xiao doesn't even know where I am. What about you? I'm afraid you're not having a good time, right? However, Xiao Hua was never afraid of the void. He almost didn't hesitate to fly towards a place. But after flying for a while, he smiled again. With a wave of his hand, the turtle shell that he got from Tsonglang Zi's cave flew out. The turtle shell flew into the void, and immediately emitted a light ochre brilliance, transforming into a scroll, and a heart shape quickly flew out from the scroll. Good. Xiao Hua smiled, and patted his head again. Pooh! Huang Hongqing's 3 heavens hearts of different colors flew out. The light ochre heavens heart immediately flew over cheerfully, and formed a circle with the 3 heavens hearts, forming a 4-colored circle. The 4-colored heavens hearts flickered and rotated in the void, causing the heavenly book to slowly flip. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand, and the heavenly book fell into his hand. He looked at it with the clear eyes technique, and found that it recorded the cultivation method of wood essence unification. Woo-woo! Just as Xiao Hua was looking at it with rapt attention, the 4-colored heavens hearts suddenly became strange again, and slightly rotated, wanting to rush down. It seemed that there was something there that was attracting them. Hee, I'm afraid that's Senior Tsonglang Zi's cave below. Xiao Hua understood. He opened his mouth, and the 4-colored heavens hearts fell into his chest. Then, he sent the heavenly book into his middle dantian, and urged his body to fly down. Fellow Taoist. After flying for half an hour, he still didn't see anything. Suddenly, Dragon Vein Xiao Hua said, I suddenly have a very familiar feeling. Oh? What's wrong? Xiao Hua asked curiously, why do you have such a strange feeling? I think I'm home. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua's indifferent words almost made Xiao Hua jump up in fright. Your home is here? Then isn't I's home also here? Xiao Hua hurriedly asked. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua said with a smile, I only said I think I'm home. Oh. Xiao Hua blinked his eyes, as if he didn't understand. I'll quickly go down and take a look. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua seemed to be very happy, and also said, I also have a familiar feeling. It can't be. Xiao Hua was really dumbfounded. Could it be that below is not Tsonglang Zi's cave? Roar. Faintly, a familiar dragon's roar actually came from the void. Hee, enemies are bound to meet. So that evil dragon is here. Xiao Hua pinched his nose and laughed loudly, and hurriedly increased his flying speed. After waiting for half a meal's time, when Xiao Hua flew closer and saw clearly, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He saw that at the bottom of the void, there was a huge dragon shape, and this dragon shape stretched for thousands of miles. The dragon-shaped figure was carrying a mountain-like object on its back. The tail of the dragon-shaped figure was currently hanging on a strange cauldron-shaped object. The cauldron-shaped object was like a huge nail that was firmly nailed into the ground. In the dragon-shaped figure's mouth, there was a small dragon that was struggling at death's door. This dragon was the giant dragon that had fought with Xiao Hua to fly out of the light pillar. Now, in the dragon-shaped figure's mouth, It was pitifully transformed into a small dragon. Roar! Just when Xiaohua was stunned, dragon vein Xiaohua roared loudly, rushed out of Xiaohua's body, and rapidly expanded. In just a moment, it actually became a dragon shape that was very similar to the dragon shape, but thousands of miles long. Dragon vein! How could Xiaohua not understand when he saw this? His gaze looked at the mountain above the dragon vein, and he couldn't help but smile bitterly in admiration. Damn, this mountain. I'm afraid it's Songlangzi's cave. Songlangzi actually built his cave on top of the dragon vein. And this dragon vein is a moving dragon vein. No wonder this cave can move. As for why it stopped in Jingzhou, I'm afraid it's because when the dragon vein brought the cave here, it was hung here by this cauldron-shaped thing. But what is this cauldron? It can actually nail the dragon chi? -13. Chapter 3787. Fellow Immortal, save me. Just as Xiaohua is stunned, the little dragon in the mouth of the dragon vein actually speaks. Xiaohua retracts his gaze from the cauldron, looks at the little dragon up and down and says with a smile, "Why should I save you? Give me a reason first." The little dragon hesitates a bit and says, "I can tell fellow immortal what is this thing that is nailing the dragon vein, and I can also tell fellow immortal how to collect this thing. It's not important what this thing is. It's also not important whether to collect this thing or not." Xiaohua slightly shakes his head. The question is, why should I collect this thing? You sneak attacked I. Why should I save you? Fellow immortal, you wronged me. I actually didn't plan to sneak attack you. The little dragon bitterly smiles. You and I have no enmity. I just wanted to follow you out of the cold spirit valley. But I was afraid that you would misunderstand, so I didn't dare to greet you. Cold Spirit Valley? Xiaohua's eyes turn, looks at the little dragon and says, "I know that you have enmity with the EC Dragon Palace. Although I am not familiar with the EC Dragon Palace now, I still need their help in the future, so I don't plan to get involved in the enmity between you two, let alone save you." Fellow Immortal, why are you looking for the EC Dragon Palace? I am also from the dragon race. Maybe I can help you. The little dragon hastily asks. I want to go to the Dragon Island. Xiaohua says with a smile. Can you help I? The little dragon hesitates for a moment. If it was before, I can certainly guarantee it, but now, I don't have 60% certainty. Oh? Seeing that the little dragon actually admits that he can't and didn't lie to him, Xiaohua is a bit surprised. He looks at the cauldron under his feet and says, "Then tell me what this thing is first." This is the Jing Province Cauldron, one of the 9 cauldrons of the hidden immortal continent. The little dragon says without hesitation, "Cauldron?" Xiaohua suddenly quivers, as if he thought of another inconceivable thing. Could this be the 9-province cauldron that the Confucian cultivator spoke of? The 9-province cauldron that can suppress fate and nail the mountains? This legendary 9-province cauldron actually really exists? Of course it exists, Xiaolong replied. Although the 9 cauldrons suppress the 9 prefectures, no one can see it. If it wasn't for the dragon chi surrounding the Jingzhou cauldron, we wouldn't be able to see it either. Since you know that the 9 continents' cauldrons cannot be seen, how do you know how to obtain them? Xiaohua asked again. This is the inheritance of my dragon bloodline. There's no reason for it. The little dragon replied proudly. All right. Hearing that it was another inheritance, Xiaohua understood and could only helplessly say, "Do you think I can accept this Jing Province cauldron?" Of course not. However, Your Excellency has the dragon vein fate. You are a person with great fortune in the human race. If you have the heavenly book Heart of Heaven, you will definitely be able to obtain it. The little dragon replied. Xiaohua smiled. If I didn't have the heavenly book's heavenly heart, wouldn't I be unable to collect it? Of course. But what if I search his soul? Wouldn't you also be able to obtain the method to collect it? Xiaohua threatened. Fellow immortal, you can give it a try. The little dragon laughed. My cave. At this point, Xiaolong suddenly stopped talking. He looked a bit embarrassed and said, if fellow immortal doesn't want to make a deal with me, then that's fine. Actually, Upper Dragon Island, you're a dragon from the heavenly abode river. Xiaohua suddenly said with a smile. And Xiaolong was not very familiar with the human language of the hidden immortal continent. Just now, he accidentally let the cat out of the bag and was thinking about how to remedy it. Xiaohua suddenly attacked him, and he casually responded. If it was an ordinary dragon language, Xiaolong would definitely not have made such a mistake. However, since he had already spoken, Xiaolong's expression immediately changed. He knew that he would make a mistake if he spoke too much, so he ignored Xiaohua. Thinking of the heavenly abode river dragon tribe, Xiaohua first thought of Xiao Yun and that incomparably strong dwarf in the longevity town. Then, he thought of the water escape technique he obtained the earliest. Looking at the somewhat depressed Xiaolong with a smile, Xiaohua knew that there was definitely a problem with the dragon pendant fragment that Aozhan obtained. However, he did not point it out. He only asked, "I don't care who you are, nor do I care about the grudges between you and the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. I only want to ask you one thing. You have to answer honestly. If I'm satisfied, I can save you." Xiaolong looked at Xiaohua in disbelief. He did not dare to say more and only nodded. "A few years ago, was it your heavenly abode river water tribe that flooded the longevity town?" Hearing Xiaohua ask about the longevity town, Xiaolong's expression clearly relaxed. He nodded without hesitation. "Why did the water tribe of the heavenly abode river flood the longevity town?" "Immortal friend, didn't you only ask one question? This seems like it's already two questions." Xiaolong stuttered. "Yes, I haven't asked that question yet." Xiaohua's eyes lit up as he replied. Xiaolong thought for a moment and said, "Then you can ask now." "All right," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Tell me the ins and outs of how the heavenly abode river flooded the longevity town." "Ah?" Xiaolong did not know whether to laugh or cry. This sentence is a bit too long. However, the matter of the water tribe of the heavenly abode river flooding the longevity town did not seem to be a big deal in Xiaolong's eyes. He thought for a moment and then told Xiaohua. The matter could not be considered simple or troublesome. Due to a certain reason that Xiaolong was unwilling to say, the heavenly abode river's dragon girl, Zhonghong, was lost in the Yu province area. The water tribe of the heavenly abode river searched for her for several years without any news. Later on, a water demon found traces of the dragon girl in the longevity town. Therefore, the water tribe of the heavenly abode river sent dragon general Jiang Shang and a group of water tribe to investigate, who knew that the news was true, and the dragon general brought the dragon girl back. "How is Zhonghong now?" Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked for Lui in the end. "My family's princess is very good," Xiaolong replied in astonishment. "Immortal friend, why do you ask this?" "Hee, it's nothing." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "When you go back, tell Zhonghong that my disciple, Lu Yi, misses her very much." "Okay," Xiaolong casually said. Then, he realized the meaning of the human language of the hidden immortal continent and said in surprise, You can save me? Quickly tell I the secret of how to collect the 9-province cauldron." "I can't wait," Xiaohua said with a smile. "But, if I tell you, what if a mortal friend doesn't save me?" This Xiaolong was definitely not a fool. "I am Lu Yi's master. How can I deceive the water tribe of the heavenly abode river? Who is Lu Yi? Forget it, forget it." Xiaohua opened his mouth and said, "Taoist dragon vein. You can devour this dragon vein." Roar. Dragon vein. Xiaohua roared and opened his mouth to charge at the dragon vein. The dragon vein seemed to have intelligence and hurriedly struggled. However, its tail was completely suppressed by the Jing province cauldron. How could it escape? In just half an hour, dragon vein Xiaohua had already devoured most of the dragon vein. Seeing dragon vein Xiaohua being so fierce, Xiaolong was really scared. He might not be afraid of Xiaohua, but the dragon vein could devour him at this moment. "Immortal friend, listen carefully." Xiaolong did not wait for Xiaohua to urge him and hurriedly transmitted his voice. Xiaohua lazily picked his ear and said, "I told you to say it earlier. In the future, we might be a family." "Yes, yes." Xiaolong was very helpless and hurriedly smiled. "Oh, by the way, how did you avoid Aozhan's detection? Why don't you tell I?" Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and asked again. Xiaolong, who boasted of his wisdom, looked at the greedy Xiaohua and then looked at the dragon vein Xiaohua behind him. After weighing the pros and cons in his heart for a long time, he softly transmitted his voice and told him everything. Good. Hearing this, Xiaohua beamed with joy. This kind of concealment method was the best way to sneak attack. He liked it the most. After Xiaohua finished listening, Xiaohua waved his hand. Xiaohua swallowed the remaining portion of the dragon vein and released the little dragon. Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands. Fellow immortal, please leave. This poor Taoist will not send you off. AI, no matter what, thank you, immortal friend. Xiaolong sighed and said, I hope immortal friend will not reveal my actions to the East Sea Dragon Palace. Hehe, you think Aozhan is a fool. Xiaohua said with a smile, even I think that your dragon pendant is fake. How can he not see it? Immortal friend is wrong. Sometimes, everyone is very smart, but they are willing to be fools. The authenticity of the dragon pendant doesn't matter, as long as you have the dragon pendant. Oh, I understand. Xiaohua nodded thoughtfully. This is my dragon pendant. Xiaolong stretched out his hand and took out a dragon pendant, handing it to Xiaohua. I am called Zhang Che. If you want to go to Dragon Island, I really don't dare to agree. If you really want to go, I will help you think of a way. Take it as a reward for not revealing my actions. Immortal friend Jiang has a good plan. I am Xiaohua. Xiaohua accepted it with a smile. He didn't even look at it and kept it in his space. We will talk about this later. As for your whereabouts, I think Aozhan and the East Sea Dragon Palace may not care. I hope so. Zhang Che cupped his hands. Taoist Xiao, we will meet again. Please. Xiaohua nodded and raised his hand. After Zhang Che flew away, Xiaohua hurriedly called Dragon Vein Xiaohua. Taoist Dragon Vein, you should leave some of the dragon vein. Otherwise, who will carry Senior Tsang Longzi's cave? Hehe, I understand. Isn't there a tail here? Dragon Vein Xiaohua smiled and pointed at the Jingzhou cauldron. When you keep this cauldron, I will release the rest of the dragon vein. Good. Xiaohua nodded. He released the four-colored heaven's core and surrounded the Jingzhou cauldron. Then, he had Confucian cultivator Xiaohua use the 9 flying swords to pin the Jingzhou cauldron. Finally, according to the secret technique Zhang Che taught him, he used the dragon vein to pull the Jingzhou cauldron out of the ground. Rumble. The earth seemed to be shaking. Xiaohua pulled the Jingzhou cauldron out of the ground. Once the seemingly huge Jingzhou cauldron was pulled out, it immediately shrunk and turned into a strange object the size of a palm. Hiss! Seeing the strange object in his hand, Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air and said in shock, Isn't this one of the 5 strange objects in Kong Hongwu's Qinkuan pouch? -13. Chapter 3788. Of course, if one looked closely, this thing looked similar to a small hedgehog. Wasn't it similar to those weird things that Xiaohua got from Kong Hongwu? Thinking of this, Xiaohua hurriedly took out the other 5 things. When the 6 of them were put together, a layer of dark luster appeared. It looked very thick and mysterious. Needless to say, these 6 things must be the 6 cauldrons of the 9 province cauldrons. Looking at the 6 cauldrons, Xiaohua's hand slightly trembled, and he almost threw them out of his hand. This was the fate of the 6 provinces of the hidden immortal continent, and it was actually in his hands. No one, not to mention anyone, even the immortal emperor probably wouldn't have thought of this. Almost instantly, Xiaohua immediately sent the 6 cauldrons into the space. He had already decided that he wouldn't take them out unless it was a critical moment, and he wouldn't let anyone know. Damn it, if the Confucian cultivators knew about this, they would probably go crazy and pull out my tendons and skin me alive. That's not right. They should be looking for Kong Hongwu. This was all done by that guy. That's not right either. Kong Hongwu was the Hall Master of Star Lord Hall, a righteous Confucian cultivator. Why did he collect the cauldrons of the 9 province cauldrons in the hidden immortal continent? Isn't this destroying the fate of the Confucian cultivators for no reason? Xiaohua was really baffled. Many distracting thoughts flashed through his mind. Could it be that I killed him by mistake? Is he a Taoist cultivator? While Xiaohua was thinking, Dragon Vein Xiaohua flew back. Xiao Hua looked up and saw that the remaining 10% of the dragon vein was abnormally weak. At this moment, the dragon vein Songlongzi's cave was still able to move, but it was moving very slowly. Fellow Taoist, you have a good appetite. Xiao Hua gave Dragon Vein Xiao Hua a thumbs up and praised. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua smacked his lips and said with a smile, "Thank you, fellow Taoist. If you have this opportunity in the future, you might as well call I out more often." And Xiao Hua thought for a moment and asked again, "Zhang Che just said that the cauldrons of the 9 province cauldrons are invisible underground. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even immortals and Buddhas can't detect them. Can fellow Taoists see them?" "Of course I can't see them." Dragon Vein Xiao Hua shook his head without hesitation. It can't be. Even fellow Taoist can't see it?" Xiao Hua was a bit dumbfounded. Hee, I can't see, but I can sense it within 100 miles. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua replied with a smile. "Bailey, it's a bit far." Xiao Hua sighed. The other 3 cauldrons must be in the other 3 prefectures. Each prefecture is more than 1,000,000 miles in size. 100 miles away is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua shrugged his shoulders. Fellow Taoist is too impatient. Being able to sense it within 100 li is already very good. "Oh, that's right." Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback. He cupped his hands and said, "Fellow Taoist is right. I was a bit too eager for quick success. Fellow Taoist, please go back and rest. We'll talk about this later." After sending Dragon Vein Xiao Hua back, Xiao Hua looked around again. Seeing that there were no other abnormalities, he prepared to return to Songlongzi's cave. However, looking at the cave that was like a mountain, Xiao Hua really scratched his ears and cheeks. He didn't want to walk through the maze again. After thinking for a while, he took out the token from the legacy world. Unfortunately, the Serene cauldron didn't have any spiritual light now. It was no different from an ordinary small cauldron. Presumably, it couldn't be used again, let alone send Xiao Hua back to the altar in Songlongzi's cave. Forget it. Xiao Hua thought for a while and sighed. Senior Songlongzi must have entered the legacy world by chance and even comprehended Tao from the flying ants. As for whether he obtained the true blood of the demon clan, this is unknown. Since he left the altar undestroyed and even left a passage under the cloud bed, why should this Xiao go and destroy these things? Now that I have obtained the bloodline of the absolute saint, no matter how you look at it, I still receive the favor of the demon clan. I can't repay kindness with enmity. After thinking, Xiao Hua escaped from the ground and arrived above the Jade Mountains maze. Xiao Hua had left the legacy realm, so he naturally wouldn't know that at a location at the extreme edge of the legacy realm, an enormous pillar of starlight seemed to penetrate the entire legacy realm as it fell straight down. A triangular hole was emitting a dense demonic aura. Rumble. Amidst the enormous rumbling, an object the size of a foot flew out from the demonic aura. That object was 9-colored, and the demonic aura lingered around it. It was precisely the appearance of a fox. At the same time, a roar resounded through the sky from the cave entrance. A great demon that was several hundred feet tall flew out from the cave entrance. As soon as that great demon fell into the legacy world, it raised its claws and grabbed the fox-like object. After being stunned for a moment, it looked up to the sky and laughed. A series of strange words came out from the great demon's mouth. "This is indeed the legacy world. Ha ha ha." This old man racked his brains and killed who knows how many demon clans. "Finally, I found the entrance to the legacy world in the abandoned land of the 10,000 demon realm. Wait until this old man obtains the ancient bloodline. This old man will certainly become the sage emperor of this generation." After saying that, that great demon put away the token and flew up. A huge shadow came out from its body. It was a fox with 9 tails behind it. Xiao Hua flew to the Cloudy Mountain Maze. At this time, the Cloudy Mountain Maze was a little different from when Xiao Hua entered it a few years ago. The broken ruins were gradually recovering under the power of the formation. Even the water of the Yellow Springs formation was flowing out from the Immortal's Cave. The entire formation was still in operation. Of course, without the several hundred evil spirits inside the profound purity forbidden spirit formation, this formation had lost a lot of its power. However, How many cultivators like Xiao Hua in the hidden immortal continent could cultivate Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and Devil Dao? In the future, even if other cultivators came to break the formation, it wouldn't be easy. Especially after the dragon vein came out from the Jing province cauldron, this cloudy mountain maze began to move again. Although it was moving very slowly now, who knew where it would move to in the future? At that time, the number of cultivators who could find it would be even fewer, right? Xiaohua stood in the air and looked at this formation. All kinds of feelings welled up in his heart. This kind of mood and all kinds of harvest was something he didn't expect when he entered the formation that year. No wonder all the cultivators want to explore the ancient forbidden formation. Now, this Xiaohua finally understands. The things inside are really too precious. Xiaohua thought to himself, thinking about what this Xiaohua obtained inside. I really didn't expect it even in my dreams. All of this is enough for this Xiaohua to cultivate for several thousand years. Several thousand years sounded very shocking, but Xiaohua still underestimated the bloodline of the sage emperor. How could 10,000 years of cultivation be enough to completely integrate with the bloodline of the sage emperor? As for the specific amount of time, perhaps only Xiaohua who had reached that level could truly understand it. After sighing for a moment, Xiaohua released his divine sense. He found that there were no cultivators around this cloudy mountain maze. He knew that Zhang Daoran, Sun Kong, Zhai Xingzi, and the others didn't come out. He landed on the mountain peak of the maze. With a wave of his hand, he took out the Kunlun mirror. Under the urging of his magic power, Baiyan flew out. Although there was a broken space inside the Kunlun mirror, under Xiaohua's deliberate arrangement, the people who were sucked into it didn't meet each other. Once Baiyan flew out of the Kunlun mirror, her beautiful eyes immediately swept around. Seeing that Fu Jiwen wasn't beside her, she rolled her eyes and hurried forward to greet Xiaohua. This concubine greets spiritual master Xiao. Get up. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at Baiyan. He flicked his sleeve and said, when you came out, this Xiaohua was in seclusion and didn't see you. However, this Xiaohua heard about you from Fu Jiwen and Gusu Qiudi. Not only are you Gusu Qiudi's good friend, but you are also Fu Jiwen's wife. Therefore, this Xiaohua had no choice but to help you out. Although Xiaohua looked like he only had the strength of 4th stage essence power, and Baiyan was 5th stage essence power, Baiyan still respectfully listened to Xiaohua's words. After Xiaohua finished speaking, Baiyan immediately smiled and said, Spiritual master is my husband's master. Naturally, you are this concubine's senior. Because my husband isn't here, this concubine doesn't dare to call him master. Spiritual master has taught my husband and helped this concubine escape. This concubine doesn't know how to properly thank you. Hee, the two of you haven't bowed to heaven and earth to get married. Isn't it too much to call him your husband? Xiaohua said with a smile. Baiyan's face turned slightly red. She bit her lips and said resolutely, this concubine knows how Fu Jiwen treats this concubine. In this lifetime, this concubine will only marry Fu Jiwen. Gusu Qiudi could betray the immortal palace for Luo Kong. Why can't this concubine do the same? There's no need for that. Xiaohua said with a smile. You are different from Gusu Qiudi. You are Fu Jiwen's wife. How can this Xiaohua not care? Many thanks, Taoist. Baiyan hurriedly expressed her thanks. However, Xiaohua's expression turned serious. He said again, you are a member of the immortal palace. This Xiaohua is a Taoist cultivator. Moreover, this Xiaohua and the immortal palace have some grudges. This Xiaohua has no choice but to ask about your and Gusu Qiudi's status in the immortal palace. Baiyan was a bit hesitant. Soon after, she said with extreme sincerity, Taoist Xiao, this concubine is a female official of the immortal palace. Naturally, this concubine is under the supervision of the immortal palace's laws. Moreover, this concubine is currently a criminal. This concubine doesn't dare to reveal the secrets of the immortal palace. I hope Taoist can understand. This Xiaohua can understand. Xiaohua saw that Bai and didn't want to say anything. Naturally, he didn't want to force her to say anything. Because during the time he spent with Gusu Qiudi and Zhai Xingzi, he never heard Gusu Qiudi mention anything about the immortal palace. He knew that this matter was very important. Moreover, Taoist can't tell this concubine about the grudges between you and the immortal palace right now. Bayan said hurriedly, this concubine can't guarantee that my soul won't be searched when I return to the immortal palace. See? Xiaohua took a breath and said curiously, is it that serious? Yes. Bayan nodded. This concubine's punishment hasn't expired yet. The immortal palace naturally wants to find out the reason why the heaven's punishment prison crystal was broken. This concubine had Taoist hold on to the shards of the heaven's punishment prison crystal because the immortal palace will use the information within the heaven's punishment prison crystal to determine whether this concubine's escape conforms to the immortal laws. If it was someone else, they would definitely be searched. But this concubine is a female official of the Emperor's Star Palace. With that person's protection, my soul won't be searched. However, this is also uncertain. After all, there is still that person who has been following that person. Forget it, this concubine won't say any more. It's fine as long as Taoist knows. -13. Chapter 3789. Xiaohua originally wanted to ask who that person and that person were, but looking at the current situation, he shook his head slightly, knowing that it was better not to ask. Sigh, actually, I didn't call you out to ask you this. Xiaohua put aside his own matters and said to Wuqing, I just wanted to ask you how you plan to deal with the matter with Fu Jiwen in the future. You only said that you will never leave him, but it's no different from not saying anything. And I also know that Fu Jiwen will definitely not let you betray the immortal palace like Gusu Qiudi. I won't hide it from you. Wuqing smiled and said, when I first met Fu Jiwen, I also thought about this, but I felt that Fu Jiwen's lifespan would definitely not be longer than my sentence. So I thought that I would just muddle along with Fu Jiwen. When I saw you last time, I realized that I could possibly grow old with Fu Jiwen. As long as Fu Jiwen cultivates with you, even if he can't enter the immortal palace as an official with his Confucian cultivation, he can still enter the Penglai immortal realm with his Taoist cultivation. When that time comes, I will plead with that person to demote me to the Penglai immortal realm as punishment. Penglai immortal realm? Xiaohua was stunned and asked curiously, what's that? Is it the same as the Star-Lord Palace on Yaodai Mountain? Sigh. Wuqing sighed and said, Taoist, I can't say any more. Some things may not be considered secret to me, but to others, they may not be secret. If that person knows, I will be in trouble again. All right. Xiaohua smiled. I won't make things difficult for you. Tell me, what level of Confucian cultivation has Fu Jiwen reached, and what level of Taoist cultivation has he reached to meet your requirements? Confucian cultivation is more difficult. It has to be at least the Grandmaster level. Wuqing smiled and said, Taoist cultivation is simple. As long as he has 5th grade essence power. That's simple. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I am only at 5th grade essence power. Hee. My husband has a Taoist as his master. Reaching 5th grade essence power is a piece of cake. Wuqing replied with a smile. Haha, good. Since you said so, if this Xiao doesn't properly teach Fu Jiwen, I'm afraid I'll delay your good days. Xiaohua laughed. The Kunlun mirror shook and Fu Jiwen flew out from it. Kunlun mirror? Bai'an's eyes lit up and he almost blurted out. However, he immediately smiled bitterly. Wife. Fu Jiwen landed on the ground with joy on his face. He stepped forward and held Momo's hand. Are you free? He asked anxiously. It's up to you. Bai'an allowed Fu Jiwen to hold her small hand. She chided him lovingly. Master is right beside you. Why aren't you thanking him? It's okay. Master is one of us. He won't care about these things, Fu Jiwen said with a smile, but he still bowed and said, Master, thank you very much. No need to thank me. No need to thank me. Xiaohua flicked his sleeves and said, You two can go and whisper to each other. Bai'an probably can't stay here for long. 3 days later, when the two of you return, this Xiao will take out the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal Fragment. I reckon that law enforcement envoy will appear again. Bai'an and Fu Jiwen's faces were slightly red. However, the two of them bowed and said, Thank you, Master. Looking at the two's departing figures, Xiaohua smiled slightly. The first thing he thought of was naturally Fairy Hongxia. An indescribable longing arose in his heart. He sighed and said, "Ai, it's good to be young. This Xiao is old now." Then, Xiao Hua sat cross-legged on the mountain peak and meditated. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Fu Jiwen and Bai An returned as promised. Their faces were filled with reluctance. Clearly, Bai An had already told Fu Jiwen his plans. Xiao Hua didn't beat around the bush and asked, "Disciple, do you know everything?" "Yes, master." This disciple will definitely concentrate on his cultivation and strive to see Bai An as soon as possible. Fu Jiwen hurriedly replied, "Good. Disciple, you wait here. Bai An, follow this Xiao." Xiao Hua flicked his sleeves and turned around to fly into the sky. Bai An turned back to look at Fu Jiwen. Tears flowed from her eyes as she said reluctantly, "Husband, cultivate well. This concubine is leaving today for the sake of meeting you tomorrow. This concubine will definitely not let you down. Go." Fu Jiwen forced a smile. "This husband will definitely do his best to cultivate so that I can bring my wife back as soon as possible." Bai An lowered her head and covered her face with her sleeves as she chased after Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua brought Bai An and flew thousands of li away in one breath. Then, he asked Bai An, "Will the law enforcement envoy appear once the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal Fragment is taken out?" "Yes." Bai An nodded. "And if you can't hide in time, that law enforcement envoy might take you away as well." "Hee, that depends on how strong he is." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Are you ready? This Xiao is going to take out the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal Fragment." "See." Bai An took a deep breath and said, "This concubine is ready. Take it out, adept." "Good." Xiao Hua shook the Kunlun mirror and the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal Fragment immediately flew into the sky. Countless broken rune chains appeared on the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal. Within the rune chains, 9 different colored thunderbolts shot out in disarray. Soon after, 9 broken dragon-shaped phantoms appeared from the thunderbolts. Their hoarse roars resounded in the void. Just as the dragon form appeared, Xiao Hua's figure that was standing in midair strangely disappeared. Bai An, who was originally worried, swept her beautiful eyes over Xiao Hua several times, but she couldn't see any flaws. Only then did she feel relieved and admire Xiao Hua in her heart. However, after a few breaths of time, a loud rumbling sound of thunder filled the air. In an instant, the area within 1,000 li was covered by red clouds. A kind of black clouds pressed down and suffocated. It was like an invisible wave that drowned everything in the world in an instant. A huge, distorted light shadow that could split the heaven and earth appeared in front of the red clouds amidst the sound of thunder. Who broke the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal? An ethereal voice that was sometimes high and sometimes low, sometimes far and sometimes close, reverberated between heaven and earth. The guilty official of the School of the Emperor's Star, Bai An, greets the punishment envoy. Bai An didn't panic. He bowed and said, "The punishment envoy knows that it was the power of heaven and earth that triggered the immortal palace law of the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal. The guilty official has this opportunity to escape. The Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal is here. The punishment envoy, please verify it." The guilty official of the School of the Emperor's Star? I'm afraid I don't have the qualifications to verify it. Since it was the power of heaven and earth that broke the immortal palace law of the immortal palace, follow me back to the punishment hall of the 3 provinces of thunder to verify it. Yes, the guilty official knows. Bai An lowered his head. A thick light golden chain flew down from the red cloud. The inscriptions on the chain swam, and a restrictive aura that represented the power of heaven and earth filled the space within 1,000 miles. With a swish-swish sound, the chain fell on Bai An and tied him up. As the chain contracted, Bai An's figure disappeared into the red cloud. At the same time, a shadow of a giant hand that was thousands of feet long descended from the sky. It grabbed the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal Fragment and disappeared. Another series of thunderbolts wreaked havoc within 1,000 miles. Immediately, the light shadow disappeared, the lightning disappeared, and even the red cloud dissipated. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Xiao Hua's figure strangely appeared on the mountain peak. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the clear sky after the red cloud disappeared. He seemed to be thinking about something. Then, he activated the Dragon Clan's invisibility technique and disappeared in the air. Master Baiyan. Seeing Xiao Hua suddenly appear beside him, Fu Jiwen didn't seem to be surprised. He hurriedly asked. He was still brought back to the Immortal Palace by the punishment envoy of the Immortal Palace. Xiao Hua said with a smile, I heard it was the punishment hall of the 3 provinces of Thunder. It's not a big deal. Don't worry. Oh, that's good. Fu Jiwen breathed a sigh of relief. His heart wasn't completely at ease. He said in a low voice, I hope Bai and can use this to get away with it. Xiao Hua glanced at Fu Jiwen and said meaningfully, Baiyan is a female official of the Immortal Palace. Behind her is the school of the Emperor's Star. Previously, even the punishment envoy was lenient. What is there to be afraid of in the punishment hall? Don't tell me Baiyan didn't say anything to you. Alas, Master, Baiyan really didn't dare to say anything to me. Fu Jiwen sighed. It's said that the various palaces and halls of the Immortal Palace are very complicated. The person Baiyan mentioned in the school of the Emperor's Star has some status, but, forget it, let's not talk about this. Xiao Hua waved his hand. Baiyan must have already planned for you. You should focus on cultivating. Whether it's Confucian cultivation or Taoist cultivation, I can teach you all. Moreover, you've gained a lot in Senior Songlongzi's cave. When you finish cultivating, I'm sure you won't be too far away from Baiyan's plan. That's right. Fu Jiwen looked down at the misty mountain maze and sighed. Before I entered Senior Songlongzi's cave, I really didn't dare to have any extravagant hopes. However, in these past few years, what I've gained has greatly exceeded my expectations. In the future, as long as I'm under Master's guidance, I can really achieve what Baiyan wants. Good, for your wife. You have to cultivate well. Xiao Hua smiled, however. You don't have to tell anyone about what you've gained in my cave. This disciple naturally knows. Fu Jiwen also gave a mysterious smile. All right, we'll wait here. Who knows when they'll come out? Xiao Hua waved his hand and smiled. Yes, Master. Fu Jiwen looked around and flew to a nearby place to meditate. This wait lasted for more than half a year. During this time, the mountain peak where the cloudy mountain bewildering formation was located did not remain in its original place like before. Instead, it gradually moved eastward and underground. Although it did not move much each day, after a long time, not to mention Xiao Hua, even Fu Jiwen noticed it. Fu Jiwen had doubts in his heart, but he didn't ask. Xiao Hua closed his eyes and meditated every day. Just as the 4 entrances of the misty mountain maze were gradually sinking into the ground, a clear whistling sound could be heard from the east. Boom! A low rumbling sound could be heard from the entrance of the misty mountain maze, and a person rushed out from the hole. -13. Chapter 3790. A cultivator dressed in emperor robes flew out from the starlight with a dignified face. Isn't that Zhai Xingzi? Behind Zhai Xingzi, Gusu Qiudi had a smile on her face. After Gusu Qiudi, it was naturally Gongshu Yisin. At this moment, Gongshu Yisin's face was even more arrogant. Her starry eyes were even more resplendent. An indescribable confidence bloomed on her face like a flower. Behind her were Taoist Master Han and several other Taoist cultivators. Each of them was full of energy and looked like their cultivation had skyrocketed. Xiao Hua opened his eyes and flew up. Just as he was about to fly over, haha, another wild laughter came from the west. Sun Kong Shangren flew out with Yi Mingzi and the other cultivators. Chang Gung stood in Sun Kong Shangren's hands with his arms raised, as if he was cheering crazily. Fellow Taoist Xiao actually came out first? A faint, astonished voice came from the south. That voice was extremely solid, as if there was an invisible figure standing next to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua didn't look back and smiled. Brother Daoran seems to have half of your body entered the out-of-body realm. If this misty mountain maze formation didn't move again, Brother Daoran probably wouldn't need a few months to enter the out-of-body realm, right? Hee. In the distance, Zhang Daren's figure flew out like mist. When he flew behind Xiao Hua, Taoist Master Diquan and the other cultivators flew out from the entrance. When everyone flew closer, Xiao Hua smiled. All of the cultivators who were lucky enough to survive had made great progress in their cultivation. The return of this trip to the Misty Mountain Maze was really generous. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "Congratulations, fellow cultivators, for making great progress in your cultivation." "Same to you, same to you." Zhang Daoran glanced at Zhai Xingzi. Both of their eyes were filled with confusion because Xiao Hua's cultivation did not seem any different from before. However, the two of them still returned the greeting like everyone else. In the midst of the congratulations, Gongshu Yisin chuckled. "Elder Xiao, we entered the Misty Mountain Maze formation at the same time and came out at the same time. When we were at Songlang Zi's residence, you even took advantage of him. Why does it seem like your cultivation hasn't improved at all?" Yisin, Gusu Chiodi hurriedly scolded, somewhat embarrassed. Sigh, Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and said with a bitter smile, "Don't mention it. After I left the front mansion, I encountered a problem and didn't manage to enter Senior Songlongzi's real cave residence." As he spoke, Xiao Hua looked at Taoist Master Dichuan and the others. When Taoist Master Diquan and the others came out, they saw that Fairy Xiangfeng was not with Xiao Hua. They understood what was going on. Seeing that Xiao Hua had spoken, the three of them hurriedly went forward. Just as they were about to speak, they heard a commotion from the south. They quickly looked over and saw Fairy Xiangfeng flying out with Xueping and the others. This Taoist Dichuan was shocked to see Fairy Xiangfeng return to her female form. He looked at the smiling Xiao Hua and didn't know what had happened, but he didn't dare say anything. Woo! Before Fairy Xiangfeng got close to him, another great chi surged behind her while a colorful light rushed into the sky. At the same time, a swaying human figure flashed 60 miles away in the colorful light. At the same time, another arrogant voice sounded, "Xiao Hua, this old man got some lucky chances because of you. Therefore, this old man will let you go this time. Cultivate well. 3 years later, this old man will still come and take your life." Humph! Before Xiao Hua could speak, Gusu Chiodi let out a cold snort. She raised her delicate hand slightly, and countless pillars of vast chi shot out from the void with a rumbling sound. A huge hand that was hundreds of meters thick appeared, and it was neither real nor illusory. It also moved 100 meters in the blink of an eye and grabbed at the humanoid figure. See? The one closest to Gusu Chiodi was Gongshu Yisin. She was a Confucian cultivator and was very sensitive to Gusu Chiodi's strength. She sucked in a breath of cold air and said in shock, "Big Sister Gusu, when did you step into the upper stage of 5th grade essence energy?" "No need, Lady Gusu." Xiao Hua stopped her indifferently. "This is a personal grudge between this Xiao and someone else. He didn't get any advantage from this Xiao." And Gusu Chiodi heard, and the huge hand in the air retracted. Light and shadow were absorbed into her arm. "Xiao, Taoist Xiao." Fairy Xiangfeng was the most panicked. She quickly smiled and said, "This concubine didn't know that there was a Confucian cultivator behind me. Hee hee, it's fine, it's fine." Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. "This person has nothing to do with you." Seeing that Fairy Xiangfeng and Xiao Hua seemed to have reconciled, Taoist Diquan, Yimingzi, and Taoist Han all let out a long breath. Now that the four of them were facing Xiao Hua's group of 6, if they turned hostile or pursued the purpose of their visit, the four of them definitely wouldn't have a good ending. The benefits they obtained in the Misty Mountain Maze would instantly turn into a flower in the mirror. The three of them had a plan in mind. They exchanged glances and didn't dare to stay here for long. They bowed and said, "We were able to enter the Misty Mountain Maze all because of you fellow Taoists. We will remember this favor in our hearts. What we obtained in Senior Songlongzi's cave abode is very important. A mere few years of seclusion won't be enough to fully comprehend it. Therefore, we will return to the cave abode and seclude ourselves. When we complete our cultivation, we will pay a visit to each of you fellow Taoists." "Humph!" Gong Shui Exine snorted coldly again. "After obtaining a benefit, you all really know how to conduct yourselves. Haha." Xiao Hua, who originally didn't have a good impression of Gong Shui Exine, was in a great mood now. He waved his hand and said, "Fellow Taoists, quickly leave. The more you can comprehend, the more this Xiao will be jealous. Many thanks, Taoist Xiao, Taoist Han, and the others revealed a bit of embarrassment. They once again cupped their hands towards Xiao Hua, Zhang Daoran, and the others and urged their figures to leave. Taoist Xiao, Fairy Xiang Feng bit her lips. Just as she was about to speak, Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "Which one is Dao Cheng?" "I'll let you know." Xue Ping hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Fellow Taoist Dao Cheng encountered a trap in the secret passage. Senior Xiang Feng tried her best to save him, but to no avail. He fell in the misty mountain maze. And Xiao Hua nodded. People often say that good will be rewarded with good and evil will be punished with evil. It is indeed so. This way, this Xiao also has nothing to say. Fairy Xiang Feng, this Xiao has already said what needs to be said in the secret passage. If you can understand, now you can also leave. Although the path of love is important, the path of righteousness is even more in accordance with the heavenly Tao. I believe you can clearly distinguish which is more important. Of course, if you still can't distinguish by now, you don't need to leave anymore. Yes, this concubine was able to enter Senior Tsongleng Zi's cave with Taoist's help. These few years of comprehension have allowed this concubine to comprehend a lot. This concubine feels that in the past few years, this concubine was like a frog at the bottom of a well. Now, this concubine has just jumped out of the well. This concubine still has to thank Taoist Xiao once again. After speaking, Fairy Xiang Feng gracefully swayed again. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "All right, since this is the case, there is no need to be so formal. It's better to turn back as soon as possible." Fairy Xiang Feng slightly smiled at everyone. Her figure turned into a rainbow and flew away. Seeing that rainbow leap dozens of li, it was clear that her cultivation had also improved greatly. Good. Gongshu Exian, who had been holding back all this time, finally spoke. "Senior Xiao, what is this senior's relationship with you? What love, what righteousness? When did she appear? Where is Senior Yunmengzi? Since you know that this is a matter between us old people, why do you, a little girl, ask so many questions?" Xiao Hua rolled his eyes at her. Fairy Xiang Feng entered Senior Tsongleng Zi's cave. "Did you and the others not enter?" "Nonsense. The cave that we entered was Senior Tsongleng Zi's real cave." Gongshu Exian pouted. "I even got Senior Tsongleng Zi's formation jade eyes. How could she enter?" Xiao Hua was stunned. He looked up at Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong Shangren. Both of them nodded with a smile and didn't say much. Fuck. At this moment, Xiao Hua finally understood that he had been tricked by Tsonglongzi again. The cave residence that he had entered was not fake, but the cave residence that Zhang Daoran, Sun Kong Shangren, Zhai Xingzi, and Fairy Xiang Feng had entered was not fake either. Although there was no relic realm in their cave, there might be path understanding ants, medicine fields, and alchemy rooms. As for who was real and who was fake, perhaps only Tsonglengzi himself would know. Seeing Xiao Hua regretting, Zhai Xingzi, Zhang Daoran, and Sun Kong Shangren raised their hands at the same time, each holding a jade eye. The three of them looked at each other and smiled at the same time. Since fellow Xiao didn't enter the cave, the cultivation methods and secret arts in these jade eyes will be left to you. That's a good fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua's heart warmed. He stretched out his hand and took the 3 jade eyes, saying, "This way, my heart will be at ease." Humph, this time you took 3, but you gained the most. Gongshu Exian was a little indignant. "What's wrong? Are you envious?" Xiao Hua smiled. "If you change to Taoist cultivation methods, I will give them to you. What do you think? Do you think I'm crazy?" Gongshu Exian curled her lips and said to Gusu Chiodi, "Sister Gusu, this little sister has been away from home for a long time. I don't dare to stay here any longer. If you have time in the future, remember to come and find this little sister." "Of course," Gusu Chiodi answered with a smile. "Seniors, I'll take my leave." After several years, Gongshu Exian was not as rude as when she first arrived. She actually bowed to everyone and was about to fly away. However, Gongshu Exian only flew a few miles before her body suddenly swayed and fell straight down. Gusu Chiodi saw this and hurriedly urged her true chi. A big hand grabbed Gongshu Exian and pulled her back. At this time, Gongshu Exian's face was a little green. and the true qi outside her skin was slightly scattered. It seemed like she was out of control. Gusu Chiodi didn't dare to be negligent. She looked at Zhai Xingzi and hurriedly said, Zhai Xingzi, Exian is a little unwell? It seems like she can't go back alone. You and I have to send her back. This girl. Xiaohua smiled. She's really too greedy. -13. Chapter 3791. Since fellow Taoist Zhai Xing is leaving, fellow Taoist Xiao, we need to hurry back too. Zhang Daoran hesitated and said, If you have time, come find me in 2 years. Brother Daoran, why are you in such a hurry? Xiaohua was confused. He looked at Sun Kong and Zhai Xingzi. Oh? Seeing Xiaohua's confusion, Zhai Xingzi was confused. He ordered Fu Jiwen and the others, stand aside first. Gusu Qiudi gave Gongshu Exian a simple treatment. Although Gongshu Exian was still unconscious, her breathing had stabilized. She should be fine. Gusu Qiudi looked at everyone. She held Gongshu Exian and said, Come with me. Yes, senior. Fu Jiwen and the others answered respectfully. After everyone left, Zhai Xingzi waved his hand and set up a restriction. He looked around and said in a low voice, Fellow Taoist Xiao, we've already stepped into the out-of-body realm. We're using secret techniques to suppress our cultivation so that we can't break through the upper 5th grade. We didn't feel it when we were in Senior Zonglangzi's cave, but when we came out, we immediately felt that we couldn't control our cultivation. We had to hurry back to the cave and use talismans and secret techniques to suppress our cultivation. Otherwise, we'll be noticed by the Immortal Palace. Hearing this, Xiaohua was shocked. Although Zhai Xingzi didn't continue speaking, he instantly understood a lot. He finally understood why he had never seen a Dao Sect's out-of-aperture cultivator after arriving at the hidden Immortal Continent. He also finally understood that the Star Monarchs of the Star Monarch Hall were only at the 5th grade of origin energy. It turned out that as long as a Dao cultivator reached the out-of-body realm, the Immortal Palace would immediately notice and take action. This once again proved why the Immortal Palace didn't care about the actions of the Dao Sect's cultivators in the hidden Immortal Continent. Because in the eyes of the Immortal Palace, all the Dao Sect's cultivators were below the 5th level of origin energy and were nothing more than clowns. There was really no need to be too concerned about them. Peng Lai Immortal Realm? Suddenly, Xiaohua thought of the location that Tao Wu accidentally revealed when he sent Tao Wu back to the Immortal Palace several months ago. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and very helplessly said with a bitter smile, AI, that's right. As long as one breaks through 5th grade. Xiaohua also wanted to say something but hesitated. He looked like he was full of bitterness. Exalted Master Sun Kong, who was at the side, felt the same way. He sighed and said, Once you break through the 5th grade of essence power, you will be detected by the Immortal Palace. No matter where you are, the Immortal Palace's immortal envoys will appear instantly. If you resist, you will immediately be killed. Sigh, what are we Dao Sect cultivators doing? Of course it's for a carefree life. Zhang Daoran said calmly, as long as we can reach the out-of-body realm, the immortal emissary of the Immortal Palace will welcome us into the free immortal realm, and we won't have to live in fear anymore. This old man would rather die than be free and unfettered like a dog. Sun Kong sneered. Is there a free and unfettered immortal realm? Xiaohua looked at Zhai Xingzi and asked meaningfully, Why do I feel that this place doesn't exist? Zhai Xingzi was a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, Well, I don't know either. Every now and then, seniors at the peak of the late nascent soul stage would disappear. The legend of this free immortal realm has been around for a long time. As for whether it exists or not, I will only know after I reach the out-of-body realm. Who dares to try? Xiaohua sneered and replied, What if the Immortal Palace's immortal emissary is the soul-reaping emissary? Actually, Qiu'er might know. Zhai Xingzi explained. However, she doesn't dare to reveal this matter that involves the secrets of the Immortal Palace. This will bring disaster to their Gusu family. The only thing we can do now is to use the secret technique and delay for as long as possible. Exalted Master Sun Kong said resentfully, Think of the ancient senior Zonglangzi. That was the true freedom. Xiaohua thought for a moment and took out 3 blank jade eyes. He wrote something in them with his divine sense and handed them to the 3 people, saying, "This is the concealment technique that I use. Fellow Taoists, take a look. If it's useful, feel free to comprehend it." Good. The 3 people were overjoyed. They knew that Xiaohua's secret technique was no small matter. They hurriedly took it. After looking through it, exalted Master Sun Kong almost shouted, "I won't leave first. I'll talk about it after I comprehend it." Good. I have the same idea. Zhai Xingzi immediately agreed. He opened the barrier and urged, "We'll find a place to cultivate. It won't take long. A few months should be enough." Moreover, Gongshu Exin has suffered from qi deviation. Qiu can help her regulate her breathing. That's right. Zhang Daoran deeply agreed. He sent a voice transmission to his disciples and flew to a place. Zhai Xingzi called Gusu Qiu Di, while exalted Master Sun Kong called his disciples. They flew to different places. After the 3 people separated, Xiaohua knew that he wouldn't be able to leave anytime soon. He simply called Xueping and the others over. Xueping led the group forward and bowed, saying, "Junior thanks Daoist Xiao for protecting us. He, all of you, rise." Xiaohua helped everyone up and said with a smile, "Protecting you was just a small matter. Unfortunately, my luck wasn't good. I was sent out by the restriction before I even entered the cave. In the end, I didn't even get to see the true appearance of the cave. On the other hand, your luck isn't bad." Xueping and the others hurriedly said with a smile, "Didn't we also rely on Senior's good fortune? If Senior doesn't mind, we can." "Haha, there's no need, there's no need." Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and beckoned to Xueping, saying, "Come over here. Tell me in detail about your cultivation technique. While you're at it, if you have any comprehension in the cave, you can also circulate your mental cultivation technique for me to take a look." Xueping was startled. Then, ecstasy appeared on his face. He hurriedly sat down cross-legged. After Xiaohua set up the barrier, he told Xiaohua about his cultivation technique and cultivation route without hiding anything. After careful consideration, Xiaohua sent a voice transmission in a low voice for half a day. Then, he took out 3 jade bottles, a jade eye bottle, and a magic treasure and bestowed them to Xueping. After Xiaohua removed the barrier, Xueping didn't say anything. However, the unconcealable joy between his brows told the other cultivators that he had gained a lot. That's right. The personal guidance of a nascent soul cultivator was much more useful than the ancient cultivation technique. After all, the guidance was alive while the cultivation technique was dead. Just as the other cultivators were envious, Xiaohua also gave each cultivator half a day's time and bestowed them with cultivation techniques, magic treasures, and spiritual pills. After the last cultivator came out, Xiaohua said with a smile, "I can't personally bring you into the cave, so this is my compensation. You should cultivate with all your might, for my Dao sect." At this point, Xiaohua didn't know what to say about "for my Dao sect" or "for my Dao sect." He could only smile and say, "Forget it, just cultivate well." "Thank you, Taoist Master Xiao." Facing Taoist Master Xiao, who had actually taught them but not in name, the group of cultivators bowed and thanked him. "I still have to wait here for Zhang Daoran and the others. If you want to leave, you can leave now." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "If you don't want to leave, you can cultivate here. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. However, when Zhang Daoran and the others come out of seclusion, you must leave too." Yes, we understand." When Xueping and the others saw that Zhang Daoran and the others wanted to obtain the secret technique Jade Eyes from Xiaohua, how could they not know that this was another once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them? They hurriedly agreed and found a place not far from Xiaohua to cultivate in seclusion. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't give the secret technique Juxia gave to Zhang Daoran and the others. Even so, his secret technique to conceal the cultivation technique was enough for the 3 cultivators who had already reached the out-of-body stage to rack their brains. While comprehending, the 3 of them really did ask some questions that were difficult for them to grasp. As for Xueping and the others, they naturally asked even more questions. Xiaohua answered them one by one, while he cultivated in seclusion. The misty mountain maze gradually disappeared, leaving the group of Taoist cultivators who were still comprehending and cultivating in the mountains. Inside the immortal palace, in the jasper flower palace that was surrounded by immortal clouds, there was a small golden pavilion floating among thousands of flowers. The woman had snow-white skin, thin willow-like eyebrows, and a pair of slightly squinted eyes that faintly shone with starlight. The woman's slender fingers were placed on the seven-string zither. Under the nimble movements of her fingers, waves of music that was more beautiful than the sounds of nature were produced. It was sweeter than clear spring water as it floated among the flowers. Not to mention the inexplicable butterflies dancing in the flowers. Just outside the flowers, several mystic birds danced to the music. Their flashing wings appeared even more ethereal in the faint and colorful light of the flowers. When the music suddenly stopped, the surroundings of the pavilion suddenly turned cold, as if the music was the only warmth in this place. The stop of the music drew out the remaining enthusiasm of the flowers. Sigh. A faint sigh came from the servant standing beside the woman. "Your Highness, your zither music has long been like 100 birds paying homage to a phoenix. Now, when this servant listens to it again, I actually feel like paying homage to it. Forgive this servant for saying something disrespectful, but the zither is born from the heart. This servant should congratulate your Highness, whether it is your state of mind or bearing. They are all in the state of great accomplishment." Ding. A sharp zither music covered the servant's voice. A faint voice came from the woman's mouth. "Jing-er, do you not want to live anymore?" "I don't dare." The servant hurriedly fell to the ground and kowtowed. This servant was only speaking the truth. "Get up." The woman's tone was still indifferent. "This palace doesn't want to hear this a second time. Do you understand?" "This servant understands." The servant got up and raised her head. Looking at her face, it was the palace made of jasper flower palace, Yu Xiaojing. Yu Xiaojing glanced at the peerless beauty of the princess in front of her and lowered her head slightly, a smile hanging on the corner of her mouth. Although the princess was angry, her expression didn't show any anger. On the contrary, there was a trace of a smile between her brows that was as graceful as the green mountains and the blue sea. This princess was truly beautiful, but unfortunately, her chin was too sharp. At first glance, it always gave people a feeling of harshness. -13. Chapter 3792. Ding ding dong dong. Hearing the sound of the seven-string zither, Yu Xiaojing smiled and said, "Your Highness, when you went to the school of the Emperor's Star with Princess Miao Miao, you said you would return in 3 days. You didn't expect to be gone for 5 days. Look at your expression. Did something happen in the school of the Emperor's Star? If there was a change, that would be great. You should have heard the imperial edict long ago instead of guessing blindly." This woman was obviously the Princess Qingqing Gu Xianyun spoke of. She shook her head slightly and said, "It's not as simple as you think." "Oh, could it be that the news was fake?" Yu Xiaojing seemed to know something and asked in a low voice, "There's no need to investigate the authenticity of the news." Princess Qingqing bit her lip and said, "Even if that bitch secretly left the immortal palace and descended to the lower world, she was already in the school of the Emperor's Star when I arrived with Miao Miao. How could I have done anything? I knew from that bitch's smiling face that she must have sensed something and hurried back to the immortal palace. I was still half a step too late." Then, Yu Xiaojing was confused. "If that's the case, your Highness should have returned that day. That bitch seemed to be in a good mood." Princess Qingqing said again. She looked like she was in love. Also, the school of the Emperor's Star's heavenly reflection blue was in full bloom. She actually held a banquet in the garden and invited the first princess and the empress. I don't know if she was admiring the flowers or enjoying my awkwardness. Hearing this, Yu Xiaojing's heart skipped a beat. She didn't dare to ask any more lest she angered Princess Qingqing. Fortunately, after a while, Princess Qingqing chuckled again and said, "Unfortunately, I still stepped on that bitch's sore spot." "Oh, the one from the school of the Emperor's Star," Yu Xiaojing said curiously. "When I mentioned the Heaven's Choice Assembly, that bitch's expression changed. This really surprised me." Princess Qingqing smiled and said, "This slut has always been calm in the face of chaos." Now, Her expression has changed because of this princess words. She must not have much confidence in the Heaven's Choice Assembly, or perhaps her Heaven's Choice Assembly has changed. Hee, this way, your highness will be able to snatch that half-heaven's heart from Princess Xian. Yu Xiaojing chuckled softly. Unfortunately, before she could finish, Princess Qing snorted again. Yes, I was wrong. Yu Xiaxia listened quietly and hurriedly apologized. This servant is truly happy for your highness and forgot about that matter. Forget it. It's rare for me to be in a good mood, so I won't punish you. Princess Qing waved her hand. This servant thanks your highness for your pardon. Yu Xia quietly stood up and said, at the same time, I also wish that the princess will obtain the heaven's heart, peek into the secrets of the heaven's heart, grasp the true essence of our Confucian cultivation, and be valued by the immortal emperor. Haha, I naturally won't mistreat you when I get benefits. Princess Qing laughed loudly and asked, did anything urgent happen when I wasn't here? Your highness, there were indeed a few. Yu Xiaojing told her about the matters in the palace and then looked at the smile on Princess Qing's face. The last one is Gu Xianyun from the outer palace requesting to see your highness. Oh? How's Xianyun's task going? Princess Qing raised her eyebrows, and a trace of excitement flashed across her snowy face. Yu Xiaojing hesitated slightly and said with a smile, this is the outer palace's task, so this servant didn't dare to ask too much. However, seeing how Gu Xianyun was in such a hurry, it must have been quite tiring. Xianyun has indeed worked hard. If he can do this well, I will definitely reward him handsomely. Princess Qing seemed to be satisfied with Yu Xiaojing's words and nodded. Go, summon Gu Xianyun. I will ask him in detail. Yes, your highness. Yu Xiaojing heaved a sigh of relief. She knew that Princess Qing was in a good mood. She had already told her about Gu Xianyun's hard work. Even if Gu Xianyun made a mistake, Princess Qing might not punish him severely. Not long later, Gu Xianyun stood under the small pavilion with a calm expression. Come in, Xianyun. Princess Qing said softly, you've worked hard these days. I dare not. Gu Xianyun immediately bowed. This servant is working for your highness. I dare not say it's hard work. Rise. How did it go? Princess Qing's hands gently stroked the zither. The zither's music was very soft like a breeze. Good, your highness. This servant's trip this time totaled. Gu Xianyun gritted his teeth and clearly reported the number of nascent souls he obtained and the number of nascent souls in the demon refining gourd. Hiss. Princess Qing frowned. Why is it so little? It's not far from Empress's birthday. No, Gu Xianyun. How dare you lie to me? When you asked me to borrow the demon refining gourd last time, you asked for more than this number. But how can such a small number be worth my dignity to borrow the demon refining gourd? Hearing that, Gu Xianyun was so scared that his face changed greatly. He knelt on the ground with a plop and said with his head, Your Highness, you have sharp eyes. The number is indeed far from what I thought, but I dare not deceive your highness. Speak, Princess Qing demanded coldly. Instantly, the pavilion was surrounded by a cold aura. Good, your highness, I've been running around in the mortal world, looking for a suitable monarch. Gu Xianyun did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly explained. But before he finished, Princess Qing said lightly, You don't have to say more about your hard work. Speak about the demon refining gourd. What's going on? Yes, your highness. Gu Xianyun replied bitterly, I placed the demon refining gourd in the array of Yaodai Mountain according to the plan. I plan to use the power of the Star-Lord Hall to capture all the nascent soul cultivators participating in the Yaodai Conference. But who would have thought that the Star-Lord Hall would be killed? Hearing this, Princess Qing suddenly exclaimed, What did you say? The Star-Lord Hall was killed? When did this happen? Why didn't I know? Your Highness, Yu Xiaojing hurriedly whispered, The Star-Lord Hall Gu Xianyun mentioned is not the Star-Lord Hall of the Immortal Palace. It's the small organization on the hidden immortal continent in the mortal world that is in charge of the Yaodai Conference. It's just to fool the Dao cultivators on the hidden immortal continent, so it specially came up with a nice name. Although the so-called Star-Lord Hall is under the banner of the Immortal Palace, it's actually just a place where the guilty general of the Immortal Palace confesses his sins. Oh, I see. Princess Qingqing was enlightened and snorted. So it's such a place that hides filth. No wonder I didn't know. Yes, yes. This place is just a way for the Immortal Palace to govern the Tao cultivators. It's inferior to the Panglai Immortal Realm, the Heaven and Earth Gate, and the Xinhuang Token. Naturally, Your Highness wouldn't know. Gu Xianyun immediately said, Yes, so I didn't mention this name when I reported to Your Highness last time? Princess Qingqing waved her hand. The life or death of the so-called Star-Lord Hall has nothing to do with me. Go on. Why didn't your plan succeed? When Princess Qingqing left the Jasper Flower Palace, Gu Xianyun didn't dare to be negligent. She once again descended on Yaodai Mountain and carefully interrogated Linghu Pyren. She also watched all the videos. Now that Princess Qingqing asked, she naturally answered with ease. She recounted everything that happened on Yaodai Mountain in detail and handed over a jade eye. In the end, she kowtowed and said, Your Highness, I calculated for a long time. The sun, moon, and star formation in the Star-Lord Hall's grand formation on Yaodai Mountain can't be broken by cultivators below the 5th grade of origin energy. I used 3 treasures to lure over 1,000 Tao sect nascent soul cultivators with the intention of sucking them into the devil refining gourd. But who would have thought that there would be an accident? Not only were the sun, moon, and star formation broken and the devil refining gourd returned to the Immortal Palace, the Star-Lord Hall's Hall Master Kong Hongwu was also killed in the grand formation. This servant has failed Your Highness's trust. Please punish me. Who did it? Princess Qingqing's face turned cold, especially when she heard that nearly 1,000 nascent soul cultivators escaped. She became even angrier and questioned. Gu Xianyun bit her lips and said, From the videos and the information I have, I can't determine who did it. However, according to Linghu Pyren, there's a nascent soul cultivator called Xiao Hua who's especially suspicious. He suspects that Xiao Hua is the Grand Mist Ancestor's disciple. Grand Mist Ancestor? Princess Qingqing frowned and asked. Of course, I can't be sure. Gu Xianyun smiled bitterly and said, What kind of cultivation does the Grand Mist Ancestor have? If he made a move, the Star-Lord Hall's origin chi is merely at the upper 5th grade. It's impossible for him to leave behind any traces. What's there to be suspicious about? Hearing the doubt in Princess Qingqing's voice, Gu Xianyun was shocked and hurriedly told her his and Linghu Pyren's suspicions. Your Highness, Yu Xiaojing said in a low voice, this Taoist Qing Su is real and Xiaohua is fake. One is real and one is fake. Their goal is to cover up the Grand Mist Ancestor's methods and make him interfere in the Jadestige meeting to kill the Star-Lord Hall's Hall Master. Moreover, I think that the Star-Lord Hall might not be the Grand Mist Ancestor's target. He might have other plans. How could it be the Grand Mist Ancestor? Princess Qingqing sneered and said, If that old ghost made a move, how could the Star-Lord Hall still exist? He won't stop until blood flows everywhere. Moreover, since he killed Kong Hongwu, he would definitely take the Demon Refining Gourd. How could he let the Demon Refining Gourd return to the Immortal Palace? Yu Xiaojing smiled and said, I heard that the Grand Mist Ancestor's physical body was destroyed. Perhaps he hasn't recovered his original strength? Humph, you only know how to make groundless accusations. Princess Qingqing snorted and said, Xin Dongfang Haohua? Yes, I'll call Mr. Dongfang over. Yu Xiaojing hurriedly agreed and glanced at Gu Xianyun who was kneeling on the ground before hurriedly leaving. -13. Chapter 37-93. Princess Qingqing looked at the flowers in the distance, seemingly lost in thought. After a while, she said, Gu Xianyun, I'm here. Get up. Thank you, Your Highness. Gu Xianyun felt relieved and quickly got up. I know how hard you've worked. Princess Qingqing sighed. As this princess trusted aide, you should be aware of the situation this princess is in. This princess has entrusted such an important task to you. And although you haven't completely failed, you are still far from this princess' expectations. And from what you said, Yaodai Mountain's Star-Lord Palace can only be used once. Otherwise, It will attract the attention of the immortal emperor. What do you think we should do next? I've thought about it for a long time, Gu Xianyun said without hesitation. There are many Taoist cultivators in the hidden immortal continent, and even the Panglai immortal realm. Don't think about the Panglai immortal realm. It's too sensitive. No one dares to mess with it. Princess Qingqing seemed a little anxious and interrupted Gu Xianyun before he could finish. Yes, I didn't think it through. Gu Xianyun obviously didn't think about the Panglai immortal realm, but he went with the flow. If the Panglai immortal realm isn't mentioned, we can borrow some from the Heaven and Earth sect and the Xinhuang token. But that's far from enough. After all, we don't have enough Taoist nascent soul cultivators. I can only say, Western Paradise? Princess Qingqing frowned and asked, Your Highness is indeed wise. Gu Xianyun finally brought the topic to Paradise. Delighted, he nodded and said, There's a small town in Yuzhou in the lower realm. The relationship between us Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect is very delicate. Some conflicts could break out at any moment. Under such circumstances, if we do something in Paradise, we won't attract attention. Oh, I know about the Guanyin Pusa Golden Body in Longevity Town. If this matter isn't handled well, the war between us Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect seems inevitable. Princess Qingqing nodded slightly. Your idea is good, but the Buddhist sect Saraira is inferior to a nascent soul cultivator. This birthday gift is barely satisfactory. Why don't we do both at the same time and make a decision at the end? Gu Xianyun said carefully. All right. Princess Qingqing nodded. You're my envoy. I'll leave everything to you. Don't disappoint me again. Yes, I understand. Gu Xianyun hurriedly agreed. Also, the mistake at Yaodai Mountain was your fault. This consort wants to punish you. Do you have anything to say? Gu Xianyun immediately knelt down and said, I'm willing to accept the punishment. If I punish you now, who will help me? Princess Qingqing raised her hand and said, Get up. I will allow you to atone for your crimes by meritorious service. Thank you, Princess. Gu Xianyun stood up hurriedly, feeling very happy. This consort will give you one more task. If you can complete it, not only will you be able to atone for your crimes, even the reward will be beyond your expectations. As Princess Qingqing spoke, her right hand plucked the strings of the zither. With a series of ding-ding sounds, clouds appeared around the golden pavilion and covered it. Gu Xianyun saw this and her face turned pale. She knew that this pavilion was bestowed by the immortal emperor. The origin formation that Princess Qingqing used borrowed the power of the immortal palace. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even Confucian cultivators wouldn't be able to see the situation after the formation was activated. If Princess Qingqing didn't have an extremely important task, how could she activate such a formation? Sure enough, Princess Qingqing said, I heard that Exine obtained a rare treasure from the lower realm. This treasure is useless to the Heaven's Choice Convention, but it can help her recover her cultivation. Your task is to find out what it is and see if you can. Princess Qingqing's words shocked Gu Xianyun so much that her face turned even paler. Even her body was trembling. However, in the end, Princess Qingqing waved her sleeve and a brocade box flew out from her palace dress and landed in front of Gu Xianyun. I know this is a bit difficult for you. This is a reward for you. If you can complete it, I will reward you. Gu Xianyun took a deep breath and closed her eyes. She then gently opened the brocade box. When she saw what was inside, her eyes flashed with greed and disbelief. She closed the box without hesitation and held it in her hand. She bowed and said, Thank you for your reward, Princess. I'm willing to die for you. Ha ha ha. Princess Qingqing was overjoyed. With a wave of her hand, the clouds in the pavilion slowly dispersed. Everything within the immortal palace and under the heavens is under my control. How could I possibly let you die? Don't worry. However, Princess Qingqing's tone suddenly changed as she finished speaking. But if you harbor evil intentions and spoil my plans, then not to mention being crushed into pieces, I'll make you regret it even if you enter the cycle of reincarnation. I know. Even if I make a mistake, I won't let anyone find out. Gu Xianyun put away the brocade box and quickly answered. She then looked around and whispered, Mr. Dongfang is coming. Should I leave? Princess Qingqing smiled. Of course not. You're my confidant. He's just an outsider. There's no reason to leave him. Gu Xianyun knew that Princess Qingqing was comforting her, but she still felt warm inside. How many people in the Immortal Palace could receive such words from the fifth princess of the Immortal Emperor? Thank you, Princess. Gu Xianyun's eyes were a bit wet. She lowered her head and stood respectfully at the side. After a while, a middle-aged man with a strong body and a high forehead who looked very wise came to the pavilion accompanied by Yu Xiaojing. Yu Xiaojing saw Gu Xianyun standing at the side and knew that the crisis was over. She relaxed and said, Princess, I've brought Dongfang Haohua to see you. Princess Qingqing nodded. Let him in. The middle-aged man walked into the pavilion and bowed. Dongfang Haohua greets the fifth princess. Mr. Dongfang, please rise. Princess Qingqing smiled like a flower. I have some unresolved matters. I want to hear Mr. Dongfang's opinion. I don't dare. Princess, please speak. I'll give you my humble opinion. Although Mr. Dongfang spoke of his humble opinion, his tone was neither arrogant nor humble. He was even a bit proud. Xianyun, tell Mr. Dongfang about the Star Lord Palace's palace lord being killed on Yaodai Mountain. Princess Qingqing instructed. Yes. Gu Xianyun understood Princess Qingqing's meaning. She hurriedly cleared her throat and said what needed to be said. When Dongfang Haohua heard the words Star Lord Palace, he was stunned. After listening for a while, he understood that this Star Lord Palace wasn't the same Star Lord Palace. After Gu Xianyun finished speaking, Dongfang Haohua asked curiously, Your Highness, are you trying to find Kong Hongwu's murderer? That's not it. Princess Qingqing smiled. It's just that it involves the Grand Mist Ancestor. I'm a bit cautious. Oh, so it's like that. Dongfang Haohua nodded. The Grand Mist Ancestor is a Taoist who can reverse yin and yang. Anything that involves him will be difficult. However, from this matter, that Xiaohua cultivator is the most suspicious. He might not be the one who killed Kong Hongwu, but he definitely knows the inside story. As for that Shangguan Yaran, he must be the one who killed him. Moreover, since he can kill Shangguan Yaran as a nascent soul cultivator, he might be able to kill Kong Hongwu. Fifth princess only needs to capture Xiaohua to find out. Of course, even if Xiaohua doesn't know the inside story, since he is related to the Grand Mist Ancestor, he must be the Grand Mist Ancestor's trusted aide or disciple like Taoist Qing Su. Since fifth princess wants to find the Grand Mist Ancestor's tracks, then you have to start with these two people. Capture Xiaohua and torture him to find out the truth of Yaodai Mountain. Kill Qing Su and force the Grand Mist Ancestor to show himself. Dongfang Haohua naturally didn't think that Princess Qingqing had other thoughts, because the Grand Mist Ancestor's tracks seemed to be the most important thing in the Immortal Palace. Good. Fifth Princess Qingqing clapped her hands and said, One capture, one kill. Mr. Dongfang said it very well. However, whether it is Taoist Qing Su or Xiaohua, their origins seem to be very mysterious. I can't find their whereabouts. For some unknown reason, Linghu Pairan didn't tell Gu Xianyun where Xiaohua came from, and Gu Xianyun couldn't have learned the name of Black Wind Ridge from the cultivators who had returned. Therefore, Dongfang Haohua simply smiled and said without hesitation, My immortal palace has eyes and ears everywhere in the hidden immortal continent, which is what ordinary people call the old man of the earth. Although it is difficult to find a Taoist cultivator, but it can't be considered too difficult, right? This is why I came to find you. Princess Qingqing nodded. This matter is a great merit, but it is easy to control. I don't want too many people to know. The most important thing is that I can't directly dispatch the old man. Mr. Dongfang, you see? I understand your highness's thoughts. I will go find the deacon of the Hall of Light later. Dongfang Haohua secretly calculated in his heart and agreed. Then I will have to trouble Mr. Dongfang. Princess Qingqing said with a smile, There is another matter. Xianyun, the purpose of that Jade Pavilion meeting is to let Taoist cultivators establish a country, right? Then who got the Imperial Tutor's lot? Reporting to your highness. Gu Xianyun hurriedly said, This time, we prepared a total of 10 Imperial Tutor's lots. I checked the Seoul official hall and found that 9 Imperial Tutor's lots have been used. The hidden immortal continent has 9 more Taoist countries. The last one is still missing. Those who can get the imperial tutor's lot are also suspicious. They might be the Grand Mist Ancestor's backup plan. Princess Qingqing waved her hand. Find a reason to report to the Lingyun Hall and send troops to exterminate the 9 Taoist countries. Yes, I understand. Dongfang Haohua nodded. Not to mention exterminating 9 Taoist countries. Even if it was 10 or 100, he wouldn't be moved. Oh, that's right, Mr. Dongfang. Princess Qingqing suddenly thought of something and asked, I received news from the Tianji Hall that the lower realm's 5 prefectures seem to be in chaos. This? Dongfang Haohua frowned slightly and hesitated. The two of you can leave first. Princess Qingqing ordered with a flick of her sleeve. Gu Xianyun and Yu Xiajing hurriedly bowed and slowly stepped back. The golden pavilion was shrouded in clouds once again. -13. Chapter 3794. After half an hour, Dongfang Haohua came out of the Jasper Flower Palace. He didn't go directly to the Hall of Enlightenment. Instead, he went to the Hall of Spiritual Official first and waited for another day before arriving at the Hall of Enlightenment. When he came out of the Hall of Enlightenment, it was only the time for an incense stick to burn. From a side door of the Hall of Enlightenment, a clever-looking boy came out and rode a cloud to a dark purple palace. This palace was similar to the Jasper Flower Palace, but the plaque above the palace gate had the words, School of the Emperor's Star written on it. The boy came to the School of the Emperor's Star and used his divine sense to explore for a moment. Then, he ran to the small gate of the palace. Outside the gate, there were naturally immortal generals guarding it. They only let the boy in after checking his token. In the depths of the Emperor's Star Palace, among the many pavilions, there was a very elegant library. A woman in a palace dress was sitting behind a desk. There was a brocade chair in front of the desk, and a sage-like old man was sitting on it. The old man was holding a book in his hand and seemed to be reading something. The woman was listening with full attention. Outside the library, a palace maid walked to the door and respectfully stood there. She didn't dare to say anything. After the old man finished reading, he put away the book and smiled at the woman. Ninth Princess, this old man will stop talking about the Thunder Spirit gestation method today. I'm afraid something has happened outside. The woman looked up. That fresh face and bright eyes. Wasn't that Xin who went to the bottom of the river with Xiaohua? Thank you for your trouble, old Mr. Lei. Princess Xin got up. Seeing this, the old man also quickly got up from the brocade chair and smiled. It's no trouble at all. Not to mention the immortal emperor's decree. This old man can't disobey. The ninth princess is very respectful to this old man. This old man hopes that the princess can successfully cultivate the Thunder Spirit gestation method and quickly recover her cultivation. Okay, this old man won't delay the princess business. Goodbye. This princess will send Mr. off. Princess Xin quickly walked out from behind the desk. Old Mr. Lei waved his hand and quickly left the library. Shi Jing, is there something important? Princess Xin sent old Mr. Lei off and asked the palace maid at the door. The palace maid named Shi Jing quickly bowed and replied, reporting to the princess, Sun Gang from the Hall of Enlightenment wants to see you. Oh, what interesting matter did this little guy have this time? Let him in. The new princess smiled and waved her hand. Shi Jing turned around and waited for the new princess to return to her seat before the boy called Sun Gang came to the library in a well-behaved manner. He bowed and said, This humble subject greets the ninth princess. Get up. The new princess asked with a smile, Do you have anything important to report today? Of course it's important. The boy was a little unhappy when he heard the smile in the new princess's tone. This humble servant took a risk to meet the princess. If you don't want to listen, this humble servant won't say anything. Haha, of course. The new princess smiled and said, Sun Gang's message is all very important. This is what old Master Sun said himself. Why would I lie to you? Really? Did great-grandfather really praise me like that? Sun Gang asked proudly as he listened to his own small chest. Of course. The new princess continued, Your great-grandfather even praised you for your intelligence and said that you would definitely be a literary figure in the military. Sun Gang laughed from ear to ear. That's right, Shi Jing, give some fruits to Sun Gang. Although the school of the Emperor's Star doesn't have any peaches of immortality, we still have other fruits. The new princess was happy when she saw Sun Gang smile and ordered, "Your Highness." Shi Jing smiled and said, "He already ate it just now. However, he insisted on the spirit jujube that Your Highness brought back last time." "That's right, Your Highness." Speaking of the spirit jujube, Sun Gang threw his great-grandfather's praise to the back of his head and hurriedly asked, "Big sister, Shi Jing is too stingy. She won't even give me the spirit jujube." Hee, it's not that she won't give it to you. It's because there aren't any left in my school of the Emperor's Star. When the new princess heard the spirit jujube, she immediately knew that Xiao Hua had casually given it to her that day. She had also casually placed it in the palace. It was just that Sun Gang occasionally ate it and liked it very much. Unfortunately, there weren't many spirit jujubes. After eating it, it was naturally gone. "Your Highness, don't lie to me." Sun Gang didn't believe it. His small eyes blinked as he cried out, "You are the immortal emperor's most beloved little princess. How come you don't even have a spirit jujube?" "Little brat, what are you saying? How can you be so impudent?" While Sun Gang was speaking, an old man who looked very similar to Sun Gang slowly walked in. "Mr. Sun." The new princess stood up and smiled. Sun Gang, on the other hand, had a bitter expression on his face. He hurriedly turned around and saluted, "Greetings, great-grandfather." While speaking, a brocade chair appeared out of thin air on the side of the desk that was extremely close to the new princess. The old man walked in front of the brocade chair and said with a smile, "Your Highness, please sit." "All right, mister, sit as well." The new princess raised her hand to signal and sat down first. After the new princess sat down, the old man sat down and looked at Sun Gang. "Sun Gang, if Your Highness says you don't have it, then you don't have it. Do you understand?" "Grandson understands." Sun Gang didn't dare to say anything more. "Hee, I really don't have it here. If there's a chance in the future, I'll get more for you." The new princess smiled and said, "Thank you, princess." Sun Gang hurriedly expressed his gratitude. Old Man Sun nodded and asked Sun Gang, "What happened in the Hall of Enlightenment today?" Hearing this, Sun Gang's expression changed. He straightened his back and said, "All right, Your Highness. I'll let you know that there are many important matters in the Hall of Enlightenment today." Sun Gang's little mouth spoke one sentence after another. Princess Xian listened with a smile, while Old Man Sun narrowed his eyes and pondered. In the end, Sun Gang said, "Aside from Yong State being destroyed 42% and Yangzhou State being destroyed 39%, more than 15% of Qing State, Ji State, Liang State, and Jing State were destroyed. Su State and Gun State were destroyed more than 10%. As for you State, I don't know. What else?" The new princess knew that the Lingyun Palace was already paying attention to you State, so Sun Gang couldn't have gotten any information. "No." Sun Gang shook his head, but a moment later, he vigorously nodded. There is. This humble servant remembers. There was someone named Dongfang Haohua who came to find Sun Bing. He wanted Deacon Sun to help find 2 Dao sect cultivators. Dongfang Haohua found 2 Dao sect cultivators? Princess Xian glanced at old Mr. Sun curiously and asked in confusion, "Is this his master's idea or his own? Who are the 2 Dao sect cultivators?" Old Man Sun didn't answer the new princess and instead asked Sun Gang. "One is Qing Su Daoist and the other is Xiao Hua. It is said that they are both nascent soul cultivators." Although Sun Gang didn't care about this information, he remembered their names clearly. "Oh?" The new princess frowned. Her heart was in turmoil, but she still asked calmly, 2 nascent soul cultivators? What does he want? It is indeed strange. If they are cultivators from the Ponglai immortal realm, then it is understandable. Finding 2 Dao sect nascent soul cultivators is indeed strange. Old Man Sun looked at the new princess. The new princess noticed and nodded at Old Man Sunday. She then said to Sun Gang, "Do you have any images?" "Of course, but I don't care. They are all in Sun Bing's hands." Sun Gang didn't understand and asked, Is this very important?" "Haha, of course it is important." The new princess thought for a moment and said with a smile, "See if you can show me the images of the 2 people." If possible, your spirit date may fall on Xiaohua. Oh, really? Sun Gang was overjoyed and asked loudly, "Do you think I will lie to you?" The new princess said seriously, "You can go now. Keep this to yourself and don't tell anyone else." Hearing that it was a secret, Sun Gang straightened his back and nodded. "Your Highness, please rest assured. I understand. I will leave now and go to find Yutong." After that, Sun Gang bowed to Old Man Sun again and left with the heavy burden on his shoulders. Looking at Sun Gang's comeback, the new princess said with a smile, "Old Man Sun, Sun Gang is very clever and doesn't show his emotions on his face. He will be of great use in the future." "Your Highness, you flatter me. If this boy can still be like this after leaving the library, then he will be of great use." Ha ha ha. The new princess looked at Sun Gang, who was just 100 feet away from the library, and immediately jumped up and down like a monkey. She laughed and said, "After all, he is still young. He will be blessed with more experience." "It depends on your Highness' ambition. Mr. Sun looked at the smiling princess meaningfully and said, "Sometimes, family is important, but if you give up your utility and power for family, I'm afraid you won't even be able to keep your family. In this case, why not take the initiative? Care about the world and spread mercy on the earth?" Ahem. The new princess coughed twice, and a kind of helplessness appeared on her face. She waved her hand and said, "Old Man Sun, let's talk about it later. Now is the future." Old Man Sun looked very serious. "Ninth princess, you can't retreat anymore. You have been forced to the edge of the cliff." "It's not that bad." The new princess' helpless expression was added with embarrassment. "Your Highness, I didn't want to talk about it before. Don't tell me that I didn't know about your injury." Old Man Sun glared at the new princess. "If someone didn't set you up deliberately, how could you? The daughter of the immortal emperor, a noble descendant of heaven. Old Man Sun, don't mention this again," the new princess said firmly. Seeing the new princess's attitude, Old Man Sun didn't say anything and said, "Now that the person in the Jasper Flower Palace is looking for 2 Taoist cultivators, I don't know who Xiaohua is, but I do know Reverend Qing Su. He is the subordinate of the Grand Mist Ancestor. That person is obviously trying to steal the credit. As long as she can find the Grand Mist Ancestor's tracks or cut off his wings, she will definitely attract the attention of the Celestial Emperor. At that time, Her Highness will have a hard time protecting herself." -13. Chapter 3795. Yes, I'm going to discuss this with old Mr. Sun. Princess Xian nodded. "Regarding the Grand Mist Ancestor, I have already sent people to investigate. However, the Grand Mist Ancestor is a Taoist almighty after all. If he wants to hide his tracks, who can find him unless they are an immortal emperor? So we have to look from the side, from the local and from the small." Old Mr. Sun laughed. "Xiaohua and Qing Suzhenren are the breakthrough. The Jasper Flower Palace's foresight is very accurate." "Mister, don't tell me you didn't pay attention to Qing Suzhenren?" Princess Xian also laughed. "Of course," old Mr. Sun proudly said. "I've never had a mediocre person under the true Confucian. It's not difficult to find a Taoist cultivator. In this aspect, the Jasper Flower Palace can't compare to the Emperor's Star Palace." Speaking of this, old Mr. Sun changed the topic and asked, "In addition, what's the matter with Xiaohua of this Taoist sect? Is he the same person as the Xiaohua that your Highness mentioned?" "That's not possible." Princess Xian frowned and said, "The cultivation of Xiaohua of the hidden immortal continent and Xiaohua of the Elysian world are too far apart. Moreover, it takes several years to cross the East Sea from the Elysian world to the hidden immortal continent. It's impossible for him to attract the attention of the Jasper Flower Palace during this period of time. In particular, Xiaohua of the Elysian world is proficient in Confucian cultivation and even Buddhist magic. How could the Grand Mist Ancestor let his capable subordinate cultivate Confucian and Buddhist magic?" "Then, Your Highness, why did you tell Sun Gang?" old Mr. Sun asked. Princess Xian frowned slightly and raised her eyes to look outside the library. The new concubine bamboo there was extremely lush. After a while, she said, Xiaohua of Elysium, is extremely mysterious. I feel that he still has many divine abilities that I don't know about. If he can really teleport from the Elysian world to the hidden immortal continent, I won't be surprised. Even if he does something incredible, I think it's possible. That's why I told Sun Gang to pay more attention. Xiaohua of the Elysian world is really so powerful? Old Mr. Sun was shocked. He stared at Princess Xian and asked, "Your Highness, is there something you haven't told me?" "Indeed." Princess Xian nodded. "Those things are Xiaohua's secret," this princess promised him. "If that's the case, then I'll have to reconsider this matter." Old Mr. Sun narrowed his eyes and said, "And this old man also suggests that Her Royal Highness send my true Confucian cultivator to investigate specifically instead of letting Sun Gang make trouble." "Indeed. I'll leave this matter to old Mr. Sun." After the new princess agreed, she took out a jade eye and handed it over. "This is the statue of Xiaohua from Elysium. Old Mr. Sun, please accept it." "All right." Old Mr. Sun took it and his eyes lit up. After looking at it, he carefully put it away and said, "In addition, this old man also wants to discuss with the princess about the war in the 5 states of the hidden immortal continent. Yes, in the 9 regions of the hidden immortal continent, it is common for Dao sects to be destroyed every year. Our country of Confucian cultivators is generally within the 10 nations. Why were countries being destroyed so frequently recently? Su province and Gun province were considered normal, but Qing province, Ji province, Liangzhou, and Jingzhou had actually exceeded 15 countries. As for Yong province and Yangzhou, the number of countries that had been destroyed was almost unimaginable. What exactly had happened? Could it be that the contradictions between our country of Confucian cultivators have reached an irreconcilable point? Your Highness may not care about this, but this old man has carefully checked the situation of these countries. This is precisely what I want to report to your Highness." A layer of coldness appeared on old Mr. Sun's face. This princess is willing to listen to the details. The new princess was shocked. It was rare to see old Mr. Sun so serious, so she hurriedly said. Old Mr. Sun pointed his hand, and the map of the hidden immortal continent appeared out of thin air. He stood up and pointed at Yong province. Yong province originally had 2,131 countries of Confucian cultivators, 463 countries of Dao sects, and 177 countries of Buddhist sections. Among the countries of Confucian cultivators, our school of the military occupies 407 countries, the Confucian school occupies 1030 countries, and the rest are countries founded by the miscellaneous school, Yin-Yang school, and other schools of thought. This is the same as the agreement between our school of the military and the Confucian school. The Confucian school of the hidden immortal continent dominates, and the school of the military controls the immortal palace. However, this old man has seen that among the 42 countries that were destroyed in Yong province, 20 of them belong to the school of the military. 3 of them belong to the Confucian school, 10 belong to the miscellaneous school, and 20 of them belong to the peasant school. Peasant school? How is that possible? Xian raised her eyebrows and was even more surprised. Look at the 39 countries that were destroyed in Yangzhou. Among them, 15 belong to the school of the military, 5 belong to the Confucian school, 5 belong to the miscellaneous school, and only 10 of them belong to the Yin-Yang school. This seems to be the rhythm of 100 schools of thought. Xian sneered as if she had understood something. Old Mr. Sun nodded. On the surface, it is indeed so. It's a grand event for Confucian cultivators to contend for supremacy. But in fact, there are undercurrents surging in the hidden immortal continent. From the birth and death of the countries, it can be seen that there are some internal conflicts among us Confucian cultivators. All the major schools and aristocratic families have shown their faces, competing with each other in political and martial arts. They all want to lead each other for thousands of years. Hee. Princess Xian sneered. These are all high-sounding reasons. If we were to talk about the root cause, I'm afraid that those who are unwilling to be left out and who are dissatisfied with the distribution of the fruits of victory in the ancient immortal and Buddha formation have now seen the friction between the immortal palace and the Thunder Temple. So they are unwilling to be left out and jump out to cause trouble, right? But the problem is, old Mr. Sun smiled and said, they jumped out at the right time. Now that Yuzhou is being closely monitored by the Lingyun Palace, even the Hall of Enlightenment can't interfere. The situation in the Longevity Town is really at a critical juncture. The immortal emperor can't even take care of himself. It's just the Thunder Temple. Not everyone in the Buddhist sect wants to take advantage of it. Princess Xian naturally thought of Ci Hui. She said thoughtfully, although the Mavarakana world venerable controls the Thunder Temple, the ancient Buddha Dipankara and the Maitreya Buddha might not be on the same side as him. There might be something that can be used. Your Highness, you're thinking too much. You're too idealistic. Old Mr. Sun shook his head. The Buddhist sect has always been united against outsiders. Their doctrines are different from our Confucian cultivation methods. We can't compare them, and we can't place our hopes on them. What about the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm? It seems that those great sages haven't done anything. How would the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm dare to do anything? Old Mr. Sun smiled and said, the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm has never cared about the hidden immortal continent and the pure land of ultimate bliss. If those great sages make a move, the 3 continents will really be in chaos. The 4 great families deserve to die. Princess Xian gritted her teeth and said, back then, the Immortals and Buddhas fought against the Taoist sect together. They pushed the military school to the front, and we lost countless cultivators before we won. Now, we're just in control of the Immortal Palace, and they're so troublesome. Shoo. Old Mr. Sun hurriedly stopped Princess Xian from complaining and said anxiously, you're the princess. You can't say that. Everything is just speculation. Even if everyone knows, we can't turn hostile. This is the so-called overt conspiracy. Your Highness, don't worry. The immortal emperor must know what to do. We just need to do our own things. Well, old Mr. Sun, arrange for the true Confucian cultivators to investigate why the Jasper Flower Palace is looking for 2 Taoist nascent soul cultivators. Princess Xian ordered. Also, send people to keep an eye on the situation in the 5 continents and see what the 4 great families are doing. Also, after so many years of recuperation, the Taoist sect's cultivators are showing signs of resurgence. With the primordial chaos ancestor freed, the Taoist sect has become a force that can't be ignored. Although the military school used to be the main force to destroy the Taoist sect, the situation is different now. There's a possibility of cooperation. Although the immortal emperor doesn't have a decree, we still need to test it first. Okay, I understand. Old Mr. Sun smiled and said, the purpose of the true Confucian sect is to find the true essence of Confucian cultivators. Moreover, the goal of the true Confucian sect has always been to educate everyone regardless of background. All living things in the world, including the Taoist sect and the Buddhist sect, even demons, flowers, birds, fish, and insects, as long as they have a spirit and have the heart to be educated, they can be friends with us. When old Mr. Sun said this, Princess Xian frowned slightly and said in a low voice, old Mr. Sun, please leave us for a moment. It seems that Mr. Lei has returned for something important. After old Mr. Sun left, not long after, Mr. Lei hurried over. His face was filled with joy. The moment he entered the library, he cupped his hands and said, congratulations, 9th Princess. This old man has good news to report to your Highness. Oh? Princess Xian smiled and said, what good news is it that made Mr. Lei return? By and has returned to the punishment hall with the Thunder Profound Province's punishment envoy. Mr. Lei went straight to the point. Bai and is back? Princess Xian was overjoyed. She stood up from behind the desk and said with a smile, where was she demoted to? I actually couldn't find a trace of her after 1,000 years. Is her punishment over now? I'll let your Highness know. Mr. Lei said somewhat awkwardly. When Miss Bai pleaded guilty, it was the Empress who personally sealed her into the heavenly punishment prison crystal. The 3 provinces of the Thunder Profound Province didn't know about it. However, I already know that Miss Bai was thrown into the hidden immortal continent, not the pure land of bliss that your Highness guessed. Moreover, Miss Bai's punishment isn't over yet. It's just that the power of heaven and earth shattered her heavenly punishment prison crystal. Now, the punishment envoy is already in the punishment hall checking the heavenly punishment prison crystal's law chains. Once he reports to the Empress, misty and can be released back to the palace. Great. Princess Exine clapped her hands and said, what happened back then was the Gusu family's fault. But, in order to appease the Confucians, they put all the blame on a female official of the school of the Emperor's Star. It's rather inappropriate. Bayan was able to escape in advance, which shows the mercy of heaven and earth. Hee, I don't dare to say too much about this. Mr. Lei cupped his hands and said, I'll take my leave. When Miss Bayan returns to the school of the Emperor's Star, I'll come again to congratulate you. -13. Chapter 3796. Thank you, Mr. Lei. Princess Exine was very happy. She cared a lot about Tao Wu. As the daughter of the high and mighty immortal emperor, her life was destined to be lonely. Tao Wu had been her playmate since she was young. The immortal law that Tao Wu violated was actually nothing. Even Gusu Chiodi was not suppressed in the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal. As an accomplice, how could Tao Wu be punished? However, in order to warn Princess Exine, the Empress punished her severely. She was afraid that Princess Exine would repeat the same mistake. However, this punishment not only made Princess Exine feel guilty, but she also found several opportunities to go down to the lower realm to rescue her. As for Saint Jiangji's trip, he was also looking for Tao Wu. What Exine said to Xiaohua was not a lie. Now that Princess Exine heard that Tao Wu was free, she was so happy that she could die. The burden in her heart was swept away. After sending Mr. Lei away, Mr. Sun also left. However, after he walked out of the school of the Emperor's Star, he thought for a bit and then flew to the east. Old Mr. Sun flew for a long time and saw that the palaces and pavilions on his left had become sparse. The glow of the immortal palace was also gradually dimming. Some rather strange light purple clouds gradually filled the entire sky. Amidst the clouds, an extremely majestic palace was revealed. Mr. Sun flew to the front of the palace. He looked at the 3 ancient inscriptions on the plaque that said, Pure Jade Palace. He took a deep breath and carefully tidied his clothes. He respectfully bowed and said, Junior Sun Yu is here to greet the master of the Pure Jade Palace. Come in. A faint voice came from Sun Yu's ears. Sun Yu did not dare to stand up. He still said, Thank you, master of the Pure Jade Palace. Then, a jade stone that looked like a flight of stairs appeared in front of the Pure Jade Palace. Sun Yu straightened up and walked onto the jade stone. Thousands of light purple inscriptions rushed out from the jade stone under his feet and wrapped around Sun Yu like tadpoles. They disappeared in a moment. When Sun Yu's figure appeared again, he was inside an extremely vast palace. However, this palace was quiet, and there was no movement. It was as if there was no one inside. On the high jade platform, there was a golden throne with an old man sitting on it. This old man was wearing an emperor's robe and clouds were flowing around his face. Images of mountains and rivers flashed in the clouds as if the old man's face was the mountains and rivers. Although the old man was just sitting there, he gave off a majestic feeling. Even the tallest mountain in the hidden immortal continent couldn't be compared to the old man's imposing manner, as if he was looking down on all the other mountains. Sun Yu composed himself and hurriedly came down from the jade stone. He prostrated himself and said, Sun Yu greets the Jade Pure Palace Master. Get up. The voice of the master of the Jade Pure Palace was ethereal and extremely grand. If one listened carefully, it sounded like a gurgling stream, but inadvertently, it sounded like a thunderclap. Yes. Sun Yu stood up respectfully, not daring to raise his head even though he knew that the person sitting on the golden throne might not necessarily be the Jade Pure Palace Master's true body. After the Jade Pure Palace Master finished speaking, he didn't ask any more questions. Sun Yu continued, This junior has come to visit the Jade Pure Palace Master because I have something to report to you. The Jade Pure Palace Master replied indifferently. Sun Yu didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly told him about Princess Exine's encounter with Xiaohua as well as Xiao Hua and Taoist Master Qing Su. He asked. This junior feels that Xiao Hua is the Grand Mist Ancestor's subordinate. He should have a plan to contact the Ninth Princess and definitely has ulterior motives. However, the Ninth Princess seems to have a good impression of Xiao Hua, so this junior doesn't dare to be at ease. If Xiao Hua is the Grand Mist Ancestor's subordinate, then all of Xiao Hua's karma will be shielded by the Grand Mist Ancestor. Even if this junior wants to investigate, I may not be able to obtain the truth. Therefore, this junior wants to ask the Lord to investigate this Xiao Hua's background. If the Grand Mist Ancestor is shielding the heavens, even this prince won't be able to detect it. The Jade Pure Palace Master's voice was still calm. However, the Ninth Princess is one of my true Confucians. Her every action has a heavy influence on the world's Confucians. Your worries are very reasonable. Wait a moment, this prince will investigate. Thank you for your trouble, Jade Pure Palace Master. Sun Yu was very happy when he heard this and replied respectfully. Boom! Just as Sun Yu's voice fell, the entire palace hall emitted a loud rumbling sound. The space under Sun Yu's feet became empty in an instant. Although Sun Yu didn't dare to raise his head, he clearly saw that the magnificent palace hall had disappeared. His surroundings were pitch-black starry skies. Woo! An extremely sharp sound came from the front of his head. Sun Yu couldn't help but sneak a glance. The Jade Pure Palace Master who was originally sitting on the golden chair had disappeared. Only a group of tadpole-like inscriptions on the golden chair was violently tumbling. The sharp sound came from the inscriptions on the golden chair. Puff, puff, puff. Sun Yu's gaze fell on the inscriptions on the golden chair. In the starry skies around the golden chair, tens of thousands of feet-long crystal threads as thick as a bull's mouth appeared. These crystal threads condensed an extremely pure and noble aura, and each thread contained a faint chanting sound. As the crystal threads surged in, each inscription on the armor rapidly expanded. The inscriptions on the armor glowed and surged with clouds. They were as dazzling as the stars. Sun Yu narrowed his eyes slightly. He suddenly felt that each inscription on the armor was giving birth to thousands of living creatures. His heart couldn't help but thump as he stared at the inscriptions on the armor. He somewhat understood that this seemed to be an excellent opportunity for him. The inscriptions on the armor seemed to expand infinitely. When Sun Yu felt that there was no more starry skies in his eyes and that there was no room for anything else, with a loud bang, all the inscriptions on the armor burst apart at the same time. Human figures, beast figures, mountains, rivers, roads. It was as if the myriad forms of the world had filled Sun Yu's mind in an instant. See, as the true qi in Sun Yu's chest churned violently, a sharp pain appeared in his mind. He couldn't help but cry out. You have just become a literary saint. The true qi in your chest isn't pure. It's not good to look at it for too long. It's enough if you can feel it. Just as the voice of the Jade Pure Palace's master seemed to appear everywhere, there was a rare hint of surprise in his tone. Sun Yu quickly retracted his gaze and secretly adjusted his breathing to stabilize his realm. His ears perked up again as he listened to the Jade Pure Palace's master. Woo-woo. At this moment, the entire starry sky was filled with all kinds of things. Scenes flashed past Sun Yu's body as if they were pushed by a big hand. Countless whistling sounds were produced between the scenes. The sound of the wind was also strange, causing Sun Yu to tremble in fear. After the time it took to eat a meal, all the scenes suddenly disappeared and turned into large inscriptions on the armor hidden in the starry sky. The brilliant starlight calmly appeared in the sky again. At this moment, on the golden throne, the Jade Pure Palace's master in his emperor's outfit appeared. There was no change from before. My lord, Sun Yu probed, but the Jade Pure Palace's master didn't answer. Sun Yu didn't dare to ask more and stood quietly to the side. After a while, the Jade Pure Palace's master said, This Xiao Hua's karma is also blocked. This king can only detect that he is near Jing province. See, Sun Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. He was shocked in his heart. He wasn't shocked that the Jade Pure Palace's master couldn't detect, but he was shocked that the Grand Mist Ancestor's layout was so high. Since the new princess had already entered the trap, it would be difficult for him to dissuade her. Could it be? Sun Yu hurriedly asked. The Grand Mist Ancestor's cultivation is so high that he can detect all kinds of things in the world? He can actually be in the Pure Land, waiting for the ninth princess? No. The Jade Pure Palace's master indifferently replied. The method used to block Xiao Hua's karma is different from the Grand Mist Ancestors. It shouldn't be the Grand Mist Ancestors' method. This king can't confirm whether he is the Grand Mist Ancestor's disciple. Moreover, this king has a feeling that this Xiao Hua is very important to us Confucian cultivators. Important? Sun Yu was a little dumbfounded. He originally wanted to verify whether Xiao Hua was an enemy, but he didn't expect to get this result. The Jade Pure Palace's master sighed slightly. The entire starry sky was annihilated, and Sun Yu was once again standing inside the palace. This king has always believed that whether it is the military school, Confucian school, legalism school, Tao sect, Buddhism sect, or demon sect, as long as it can cultivate, it has a spirit. There are countless paths of cultivation, but there is only one way back. Since Xiao Hua is proficient in Tao sect and Confucian cultivation, he is useful to us Confucian cultivators. It doesn't matter whether he is the Grand Mist Ancestor's disciple. Junior understands. Sun Yu hurriedly bowed. Junior will arrange it. Following the Jade Pure Palace's master's voice, inscriptions surged around Sun Yu's body. When the inscriptions disappeared, Sun Yu's figure once again appeared outside the Jade Pure Palace. Sun Yu didn't dare to be negligent. After bowing to the Jade Pure Palace's door, he hurriedly left. Xiao Hua naturally didn't know that he had been noticed by the Jade Pure Palace's master. At this time, he was standing outside the misty mountain maze formation that had almost disappeared, smiling as he spoke to Zhang Daoran. Zhang Daoran looked at the submerged mountain peak and said, Daoist Xiao, it seems that this misty mountain maze formation is our opportunity. This time, it has sunk into the ground, and we don't know when it will come out. No one knows who the next fated fellow Taoist will be. Fate arises and perishes. Why does it have to be like this? Xiao Hua replied indifferently. But just as he was about to speak again, he suddenly felt a shock in his heart. A strange feeling arose in his heart. This feeling was like ice and snow covering his body, and even more so, it was as if his entire body had been seen through by someone. Who is it? Xiao Hua was shocked, and his divine perception hurriedly swept out. Who? Zhang Daoran was also startled. At the same time, he flew up and swept out with his divine sense in the opposite direction. However, after a while, whether it was Zhang Daoran or Xiao Hua, there was a strange expression on their faces because there was no one in their divine sense. Taoist Xiao? Zhang Daoran curiously asked, what did you find? It seems like someone is peeping. Xiao Hua was still worried and looked left and right, but obviously, he didn't find anything. Chapter 3797. How about now? Zhang Daoran probed with his divine sense for a moment. Xiao Hua closed his eyes and savored it carefully. After a while, the doubt on his face grew heavier. He answered in confusion, there seems to be more, but it also seems like there isn't. It's really strange. Congratulations, Jinren Xiao. Zhang Daoran smiled and said, oh, where did the joy come from? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Zhang Daoran said, although Jinren Xiao didn't enter the real Immortal's cave during the trip to the Misty Mountain Maze, you still gained something. Now that you're uneasy, it's a sign that you're about to break through a bottleneck. Hearing Zhang Daoran's words, Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only say perfunctorily, perhaps. You three nascent soul cultivators are about to step into the out-of-body realm. I should be able to take half a step, right? Roar. At this moment, two long roars came from the distance at the same time. Two divine senses of equal strength swept over like waterfalls. Then, Sun Kong Shangren and Zhai Xingzi flew out from their secluded cultivation. Congratulations, fellow Taoists. Xiao Hua and Zhang Daoran greeted them with smiles. Sun Kong Shangren and Zhai Xingzi landed in front of them. They looked at each other and smiled. They bowed to Xiao Hua and said, we have to thank fellow Taoist Xiao for your secret technique. Now, we have great confidence in controlling the growth of our realms. You're welcome. Xiao Hua waved his hand. We're all Taoist cultivators. It's only right that we work together. Haha. Sun Kong Shangren laughed and said something to Xiao Hua. Zhang Daoran also asked Zhai Xingzi some things in a low voice. The four nascent soul cultivators understood that since they all came out of seclusion, it was time to say goodbye. Zhai Xingzi. Gusu Qiudi's voice came. Behind her was a mysterious Gongshu Exian. Oh, Qiu'er, what's the matter? Zhai Xingzi asked with a smile. There's a small matter that I need to ask you for a favor. Gusu Qiudi flew in front of Zhai Xingzi and asked politely. This made Zhai Xingzi's hair stand. What is it? Tell me first, Zhai Xingzi said hurriedly. Gusu Qiudi looked at the four and smiled. Exian entered Senior Songlongzi's cave with your help. Not only did she get his formation legacy, but she also got some of our Confucian cultivation methods. She is very happy and has refined a small imperial artifact during her seclusion. She would like to ask for your help to test the artifact's effect. How about Xingzi be the first? Hehe, if that's the case, of course you can. Zhai Xingzi smiled and looked at Gongshu Exian behind Gusu Qiudi. Gongshu Exian flew over and said with a smile, I have to thank all of you seniors for being able to obtain so much. This little imperial equipment is something I learned from Senior Songlongzi's cave, so I would like to give it a try. Once again, I would like to thank the seniors for their tolerance. It had to be said that after several years of coexistence, Gongshu Exian's arrogant personality didn't seem so annoying. What is this imperial artifact for? Sun Kong Shangren looked at the imperial artifact in Gongshu Exian's hand that looked like a pearl and asked cautiously, Hehe, nothing, just a little toy. Gongshu Exian was like a little fox that stole a hen. Smiling very sweetly, Xingzi, Gusu Qiudi said, You are the first. It's okay. I have already tested it. Okay. Zhai Xingzi had nothing to say, so he obediently flew in front of Gongshu Exian. Hehe, take out your hand and disperse your protective qi. Gongshu Exian put the pearl in the air and said, Put it under the pearl. Zhai Xingzi did as he was told. Gongshu Exian pointed at the pearl, and a string of inscriptions appeared on it. They rushed into Zhai Xingzi's skin like ants. Then, from a small circular hole on the pearl, a rainbow rushed out. This rainbow was divided into 7 colors, layer by layer. It looked very beautiful. Zhai Xingzi looked at the rainbow that had more than 10 layers and was really confused. He did not understand what it was for. Hehe, it's Zhang Daoran Sr.'s turn. Gongshu Exian used her hand to hook the pearl and the rainbow disappeared. Qiu'er, what are you doing? Zhai Xingzi asked curiously. Gusu Qiudi smiled and said, Don't worry, I will tell you in a while. Zhang Daoran looked at Zhai Xingzi and did the same. Naturally, the rainbow flew out from the pearl again. There were 20 layers. Xiao Hua and Sun Kong Shangren at the side understood. This was probably an imperial artifact to test one's magic power. Sure enough, Sun Kong Shangren's rainbow was about the same as Zhang Daoran's. Forget it. Xiao Hua knew that his magic power was different from the other 3. He waved his hand and said, My cultivation method is different from the 3 of you. It's fine if I don't measure it. Don't. Gusu Qiudi smiled and said, Zhenren Zhao's magic power is outstanding. This is something we all know. Why don't you show it to everyone? Even if you have stepped into the out-of-body stage, it is still within our expectations. Sigh, all right. Xiao Hua was somewhat helpless. He dispersed the golden light protecting his body and withdrew his magic power and placed it on the pearl. Wong Wong. When the inscription appeared, it let out a low rumbling sound. However, the inscription actually could not penetrate Xiao Hua's skin. Gongshu Exian frowned and said unhappily, Senior Xiao, there is no need to do this. This little girl only wanted to see the effect of the imperial artifact. Aren't you being too narrow-minded? This, Xiao Hua said helplessly, go ahead and activate the imperial artifact. This Xiao is not unwilling. All right. Gongshu Exian was also helpless. She said, Senior Xiao, it is best if you don't do anything to resist. -13. Chapter 3798. I will take my leave as well. Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong looked at Xiao Hua's back and sighed in their hearts. How could they not know that Xiao Hua had already revealed a corner of his strength? Did they already have an answer to their doubts about the misty mountain maze formation? However, the four of them had already discussed the future matters. The two of them called out their disciples loudly and cupped their hands towards Shai Xingzi and the others before flying far away. Shui Ping and the others came out a bit late and bowed deeply towards the direction Xiao Hua left in. They knew very well that fate would sometimes end. This was that kind of moment. Perhaps they would have other opportunities in the future, but the fate between them and Xiao Hua would end here. At this moment, an unusual treasure hunt had come to an end. However, Xiao Hua's heart was still heavy as he flew in the air. That oppressive feeling that was like dark clouds didn't disperse for a long time. However, when he flew silently for half the time it took to brew a cup of tea, suddenly, without any warning, that heavy feeling suddenly disappeared. Even when Xiao Hua formed hand seals to check, there was no trace of it. Forget it. At this moment, how could Xiao Hua not know that he had already been noticed by others? Facing this kind of unfathomable cultivator, Xiao Hua could only sigh slightly. I've been blindly concealing my cultivation, but I was still noticed by others. Now, let's take it one step at a time and see who did it. Xiao Hua flew in the air uneasily. In a distant place, there was a beautiful palace. On a brocade chair, there was an indescribable old man. This old man's expression was somewhat ferocious, as if he was flustered and exasperated. He held a very strange jade eye in his hand and gnashed his teeth as he shouted, "Kong Hongwu, to think that I placed such high hopes on you and gave you control of my forces on the hidden, immortal continent. Look at you, a cultivator of the 5th grade essence force was actually killed by a Dao cultivator. How can you still have the face to see me? Humph, even if you come to see me, I will personally kill you. I asked you to collect the 9 cauldrons. How many did you actually get? You've really ruined this old man's plans. Who was it? Who killed Kong Hongwu, who took away the 9 cauldrons? If this old man knows your name, I will definitely pull out your tendons and peel off your skin." Life is always like a sudden encounter. It's hard to avoid some kind of surprise. Xiao Hua killed Kong Hongwu for the sake of his own survival, but the result exceeded his expectations. Not only had he attracted the attention of the Jasper Flower Palace, but he had also attracted the attention of the School of the Emperor's Star, and then the Master of the Tai Ching Palace. Now, he had also attracted the attention of the mysterious cultivator. Therefore, there was no such thing as fate in this world. Everything flowed in the river of karma. When Xiao Hua flew far away, he naturally took out his heavenly horse and flying carriage. He might not be able to find the direction himself, but with Fu Jiwen beside him, it only took him about a month to reach the vicinity of the Black Wind Ridge. However, when his Buddhist sense swept across the Black Wind Ridge, he couldn't help but be shocked again. Then, a cold frost hung on his face, and he seemed to be extremely angry. "Master." Although Fu Jiwen's divine sense technique couldn't see that far, he could still feel Xiao Hua's anger. He hurriedly whispered, "Could it be that there's been a change in Black Wind Ridge?" "That's not it." Xiao Hua sneered. "How could the formation I laid down be so easily broken by others? It's just that I really didn't expect the temptation of the 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal to be so great. The monarch of the Bronze Pillar country really deserves to die." Fu Jiwen didn't understand Xiao Hua's words, but he didn't ask too much. Xiao Hua only pondered for a moment before instructing, "Disciple, slowly fly over by yourself. Master will go and help Li Xiang out." Along the way, Xiao Hua had already explained the general situation of the Black Wind Ridge. Fu Jiwen knew that Li Xiang was the nascent soul cultivator guarding the Black Wind Ridge. At this time, when he heard Xiao Hua's instruction, he hurriedly nodded and said, "Master, go ahead. Disciple will be there soon." "Good," Xiao Hua said as he put away the flying chariot and Pegasus. He looked into the distance as lightning surged around his body. Rumble. A burst of thunderclaps resounded. Xiao Hua's figure was much faster than Fei Hong. He rushed forward and disappeared in the blink of an eye. "Tsk tisk." Fu Jiwen smacked his lips. He wanted to urge the cloud to fly faster, but after thinking for a moment, he knew that with his flying speed, the excitement would have already passed by the time he reached the Black Wind Ridge. Thus, he simply flew slowly, comprehending the mysteries of his wordless heavenly book while flying. Hiss! The lightning element 3 realms is actually going to have a breakthrough? This is too fast, right? Xiao Hua had just urged the lightning escape technique when he immediately felt that there was something wrong with it. He couldn't help but be surprised. He hurriedly probed the realm of his cultivation method, but after probing, Xiao Hua frowned again. From the various signs of urging the lightning escape technique, there's nothing wrong with it. Even the true essence in the meridians, there's no problem with the mental cultivation method and realm. It seems that the lightning escape technique is really going to break through to the lightning transcendence realm soon. Ordinary cultivation methods, whether it's lightning escape technique, secret art, or secret art, would be extremely difficult to cultivate in the later stages. Without a great opportunity, one would not be able to succeed. Why is this Zhao's lightning evasion technique so fast? Thinking back to how difficult it was to cultivate in the past, until today, with almost every opportunity, this lightning escape technique can be improved. Isn't this too easy? However, after pondering for a moment, Xiao Hua understood. In the past few years in Songlongzi's cave, Xiao Hua had not only obtained Songlongzi's orthodoxy, but also the 5 elements escape technique. Now that Xiao Hua had successfully cultivated these escape techniques, under the promotion of the 5 elements escape technique, it was inevitable that the lightning escape technique would improve. In particular, Xiao Hua had also obtained the holy bloodline in the relic world. Now, although his body had not completely integrated with the holy bloodline, he was much stronger than ordinary monsters. After all, he had the body of a heavenly phoenix that was good at flying. The lightning escape technique originally had extremely harsh requirements for the tempering of the body. Otherwise, with the cultivation of the Imperial Thunder Sect's head, it would be impossible for him to stop at the level of Imperial Thunder Shock. From this, it could be seen that Xiao Hua's lightning escape technique was so fast, it could not be considered as shocking. Xiao Hua's primordial spirit was 10, and one person was equivalent to 10 people cultivating. At the beginning, it was difficult to move forward, but now it was time to start showing its power. Xiao Hua had been in seclusion for 3 years in the Jade Mountains maze. It seemed that his cultivation had not made any progress, but Xiao Hua understood that he had already reached the late nascent soul stage. As long as he cultivated step by step, he would soon be able to advance to the spirit severing stage. Of course, with Xiao Hua's current situation, even Xiao Hua himself did not know how to advance to the spirit severing stage. Since that's the case, let's make the improvement more violent. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes, looking at the Black Wind Mountain in the distance, and said coldly, "Let these bastards who don't know what's good for them know the power of this Xiao." Lightning flashed from high up in the sky, and the sound of thunder still lingered in the ears. Xiao Hua's figure instantly moved 100 li. This is. Xiao Hua's figure had just passed by when several Dao cultivators with different cultivation bases rushed out from hiding on the ground. Seeing Xiao Hua arrogantly flying away, they looked at him in astonishment, not knowing what to do. Then, they returned to hiding in the valley. It was no wonder that Xiao Hua was angry. Now, the Black Wind Mountain was really lively. The 100 li of Black Wind Mountain was almost completely surrounded by dozens of Confucian cultivators. These Confucian cultivators were not all dressed in Confucian robes. Instead, most of them were dressed in martial attire, and there were even some who were flying in the air wearing armor. Among them, many Confucian cultivators were stepping on auspicious clouds, and some Confucian cultivators were riding on flying horses. What was very eye-catching was that in the western sky, there was a group of Confucian cultivators who were actually riding various kinds of demon beasts. Outside the Black Wind Mountains formation, at the center, nascent soul Li Xiang stood in the air, holding a long, diamond-shaped magic treasure in his hand. Although Li Xiang's Taoist robe was damaged and even the bun on his head was scattered, his expression was still calm as he looked towards the east. In front of Li Xiang, Black Bear, Golden Eagle, and White Lion led their own demon beasts in 3 different directions, facing off against the Confucian cultivators. The 3 demon kings had many wounds on their bodies, and some of them were still bleeding. It was obvious that they had just been injured and did not have time to treat them. If the 3 demon kings were like this, how could the rest of the smaller demons be any better? The bear demons were the most miserable. Most of them had bloody wounds on their bodies, and a few of them even had their arms broken. The lion demons and birds of prey were much better, but they were also dispirited and had many of their wings broken. Opposite Li Xiang, in the east, stood a tall general with a long spear in his hand. The general's face was purple gold, and his beard extended to his chest, making him look very heroic. Not far below the general, there were also hundreds of soldiers riding fierce flying horses and holding various weapons in their hands. They were facing off against some of the bear demons and lion demons. At this moment, the general smiled and said, Fellow immortal Li, although you and I were evenly matched just now, to tell you the truth, this old man did not intend to kill you. If fellow immortal insists on going about things the wrong way, then don't blame this old man for not showing mercy. Li Xiang said indifferently, How ridiculous, Zhang Zhanghong. Why do you care about feelings between life and death? Besides, if you could kill me, why wait until now? You don't know how many times you've said these words in the past 6 months. Even if you don't find it annoying, I do. I advise you, if you don't take this opportunity to kill me, then after a while, there will be other Confucian cultivators coming to drive your wind pavilion away. You should take advantage of this opportunity. Good. In that case, Zhang Zhanghong's face was a little red. Of course, he wanted to kill Li Xiang. However, although Li Xiang's strength was not as strong as his, Li Xiang relied on the power of the capital star array. At every critical moment, Li Xiang would hide in the array, which really made it difficult for him to kill him. Of course, what Li Xiang said was not wrong. The wind pavilion under Zhang Zhanghong's control had driven away the wave pagoda, which had besieged the Black Wind Mountain, to occupy the east. Similarly, which of the dozens of forces besieging the Black Wind Mountain did not do the same? When more powerful forces came, presumably, Zhang Zhanghong's wind pavilion would also be driven away, right? -13. Chapter 3799. Hey! Before Zhang Zhanghong could finish, a Confucian cultivator next to Changfeng Pavilion shouted, Pavilion Master Jiang, your Changfeng Pavilion has already attacked. Is it our turn now? Zhang Zhanghong looked at the sturdy Confucian cultivator next to him, who was wearing a dragon robe and holding a dragon spear. He said loudly, Xiahan, I just fought with Black Wind Ridge. It hasn't even been a meal's time, and you're already so anxious? A meal's time is also a fight. Xiahan sneered, raised the dragon spear in his hand, and shouted, Boys, kill for me, kill? There were more than 1,000 people behind Xiahan. These disciples were all riding strange beasts. Although the weapons in each disciple's hand were different, they all roared and activated their weapons. Inscriptions appeared one after another, attracting thousands of noble qi. These noble qi turned into dozens of dragon shapes, crazily pouncing on the lion spirits. As for Xiahan, he didn't even wait for Zhang Zhanghong's reply. When he raised the dragon spear, several noble qi pillars crashed into the spear. Roar! The dragon spear's body was covered with dense inscriptions. Under the activation of genuine qi, it also flew to Li Xiang's side like a huge dragon. Haha, this is the Confucian cultivator who rules the world with etiquette and law. Li Xiang wasn't surprised by Xiahan's sneak attack. He laughed and said, What's the difference between this and a robbery? Fine, fine, fine. Li Xiang will return the favor. After that, Li Xiang waved his magic weapon, and several rings of light flew out from the side of the rhombus. They rushed into the sky, trying to trap the dragon's head and tail. The remaining ones hit the dragon's abdomen fiercely. You dare to fight with me? Zhang Zhanghong saw Xiahan attack and immediately shouted, Disciples kill, kill? The hundreds of disciples of Changfeng Pavilion also roared. All kinds of weapons flew out, creating huge clouds in the air, and pounced on the bear's spirit. Kill? The black bear glanced at the white lion, and the 2 demons roared at the same time. The bear spirit and the lion spirit activated their demon clouds and spat out demon qi. The weapons in their hands actually glowed as they charged forward. Zhang Zhanghong, Xiahan, just you wait. Seeing that the two of them had broken the rules and attacked at the same time, the Confucian cultivators around Blackwind Ridge began to clamor. Immediately, the air above Blackwind Ridge became chaotic again. However, this chaos only lasted for a moment. Kill, kill, kill. The remaining dozen or so forces shamelessly activated their true chi and rushed toward the fairies in the center of the Blackwind Ridge. Li Xiang's halo had just landed on the coiling dragon's body when the coiling dragon swung its tail. Pong! A sharp cold light flashed from the coiling dragon's head, and the halo was shattered by the spearhead. As the coiling dragon swung its tail, the halo was also sent flying. Several halos hit the body of the coiling dragon, and the inscriptions on the body of the coiling dragon changed greatly, revealing the original engraved inscriptions. However, only for a moment, the coiling dragon swam again, and a sharp murderous aura forced into Li Xiang's protective true chi, causing the nascent soul in Li Xiang's body to become restless. Alas! Li Xiang sighed slightly. He knew that although Xia Han's character was not good, he was still a master of a sect, and his strength had already surpassed his own. Go! Li Xiang did not hesitate at all. He raised his left hand, and a small flag appeared in his hand. He shouted loudly, and the flag shook. In an instant, the wind and clouds in the sky shook, and a stream of heaven and earth essence chi appeared out of thin air. This essence chi was like a giant wall, separating the bear spirit, the lion spirit, and the birds. It also blocked Zhang Zhanghong, Xia Han, and the other Confucian cultivators outside the wall. Boom! Xia Han's coiling dragon spear was too late, and it hit the chi wave. The coiling dragon spear stagnated in the air for a moment, and then a huge counterforce was generated from the tip of the spear. The whole coiling dragon spear flashed back like lightning and stabbed straight into Xia Han's chest. Its speed was even faster than the previous attack. Although Xia Han was somewhat prepared, he was still caught unprepared. Who? The end of the spear hit Xia Han's Confucian robe, and layers of inscriptions appeared and disappeared in a moment. The coiling dragon spear pierced through Xia Han's Confucian robe and directly stabbed into the body of a Confucian cultivator behind Xia Han. That Confucian cultivator was only a scholar, and just as he was alerted, the end of the coiling dragon spear had already pierced through his body. The Confucian cultivator screamed miserably as his corpse fell from the sky. Moreover, before the corpse fell to the ground, its flesh and blood had already been torn apart, leaving only the eerie white bones. Xia Han was embarrassed, and Zhang Zhanghong was not much better. The other 10 or so Confucian cultivators also suffered under the capital star array. Even a 4th-level origin energy master was like this, not to mention their disciples. Thousands of people were counterattacked by the capital star array and suffered different degrees of injuries. Xia Han, Zhang Zhanghong said as he used the long spear to heal his injuries. Seeing that the sky above Blackwind Ridge was already empty, he knew that Li Xiang had already returned to the array with the 3 demons. He could not help but be furious. It wasn't easy for us to force Li Xiang to fight, but you didn't act according to our plan. Hee, do you think your plan will work? Xia Han also used the spirit medicine and unceremoniously retorted, "Isn't it just luring the snake out of its hole and killing it? Who doesn't know? We have besieged Blackwind Ridge for who knows how long. Do you think Li Xiang is a fool? He has never left the range of the Blackwind Ridge array. As long as this array exists, we can't attack Blackwind Ridge at all." Zhang Zhanghong immediately stomped his foot in midair and scolded, "Since you know this, why don't you take turns to fight? First exhaust Li Xiang's dermic power, and when he slacks off, you immediately take away his array flag? Why do you have to do it before I, Zhang Zhanghong? I was injured by him a few months ago. Today, I want to regain my face. Can I do that?" Xia Han naturally would not tell Zhang Zhanghong that his coiled dragon spear had been tempered and poisoned. As long as the tip of the spear touched Li Xiang's body, Li Xiang would definitely be killed. He was afraid that Zhang Zhanghong would have the same idea as him to snatch the credit. In the distance, a short man with a fat figure also shouted gloomily, "Master Xie is too unkind. Once you attack, that Li Xiang will be scared again. He will hide in Blackwind Ridge and won't come out for a few months. You and I will have to wait here in vain again. So what if we wait in vain? If you have the ability, then break the array in Peng Country. Wang Pai, you are the imperial preceptor of Peng Country. Don't tell me you don't even have this method? Xia Han's face had a rogue expression of, bite me, which really made people feel helpless. If I had this method, why would I have to wait until now? Wang Pai snorted coldly from his nose. He was very displeased with Xia Han's one piece of rat shit spoiling the whole pot of porridge behavior. He said, besides, didn't Peng Country invite a few array masters to break the array last year? If they can't do it, how can I do it? Sigh. Everyone, stop arguing. A Confucian cultivator wearing a crown flew over and waved his hand. There's no point in talking about this. It's better for us to think about how to break the array. How to break the array. Is there a need to discuss? We can either find an array master or invite a senior with upper 5th grade essence force. It's useless no matter how many 4th grade essence force masters we have. Wang Pai rolled his eyes and looked a little discouraged. It's naturally useful if there are more 4th grade essence force masters, Zhang Zhanghong said coldly. However, there's only one 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal. The more people there are, the messier it will be. It's better not to have many. There are seniors with upper 5th grade essence force, but they are not willing to take action for these mundane matters. After all, they have already experienced the mortal world and do not want to repeat the same mistakes. Xia Han replied with a bitter smile. Besides, although the array in Black Wind Ridge is powerful, Li Xiang is only an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. How could he invite a 5th grade essence force master like us to help? Wouldn't that be slapping the seniors in the face? This old man did go to the Gongshu aristocratic family once the year before last. Unfortunately, the Gongshu aristocratic family did not want to get involved in the affairs of the Yu province. Furthermore, their most powerful array master, Gongshu Yisin, did not seem to be in the clan. The Confucian cultivator with the crown couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, a few more Confucian cultivators flew over from afar and couldn't help but shout, then, are we still guarding this place? That's the only way, Xia Han said coldly. Since we've already wasted so much time, why should we be afraid of wasting a few more days? They are holed up in the Black Wind Ridge's array formation, and there will be a day when they are at the end of their rope. As long as Li Xiang slacks off even a little, we will have a chance to break the array. Have you all seen the Jiang country that has yet to be established? That princess of Jiang country really didn't take the 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal? Indeed not. They are the founding of the Dao sect, so there is no point in asking for the Imperial Jade Seal. Furthermore, the princess of Jiang country swore a blood oath that she had never seen any 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal, and she even said that the 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal had been taken away by the Copper Pillar State. A small country like Jiang, he shouldn't be lying. Furthermore, there aren't any special Dao sect cultivators near the princess of Jiang country. Xia Han laughed. That bullshit Xiaohua. I heard that he went to Yaodai Mountain to participate in the Yaodai gathering. He has already returned from the Yaodai gathering to establish a country, but there are still no traces of him. Yes, I heard that the Yaodai gathering this time was extremely brutal. The cultivators of the Dao sect had internal strife, and 9 out of 10 had died. Don't talk so much nonsense. Zhang Zhangheng waved his hand. My son and I have come here eagerly. We can't just disperse like this. Let's go, everyone. Let's work together and consume the elemental energy of this Black Wind Ridge's formation. That's right. The Confucian cultivators laughed out loud. In ancient times, there was a foolish old man who moved the mountain. Today, we have painstakingly broken the formation. We are not afraid that the formation of this Dao sect will not be broken. Kill, kill, kill. Not long after, shouts of killing rose again. Thousands of Confucian cultivators surrounded the Black Wind Ridge's capital star formation and attacked. On the Black Wind Ridge, a light that soared into the sky appeared once again. Damn Li Xiang, quickly come out and accept your death. I will tear off your head and drink wine. The generals felt bored and actually started to curse in the sky above the Black Wind Ridge. However, while they were attacking excitedly, the Black Wind Ridge was abnormally quiet. Rumble. Just as the Confucian cultivators were bustling with noise and excitement, a thunderclap suddenly sounded from the distant horizon. At the same time, an ice-cold spiritual sense swept over from afar. -13. Chapter 3800. Who is it? The group of Confucian cultivators were stunned. Everyone was swept by the divine sense and felt a sense of fear. They all looked up at the same time. They saw a flash of lightning that was much faster than Yuanying rainbow transformation. A small figure appeared in the distant horizon, but in the blink of an eye, it had already rushed into everyone's field of vision. A cold voice ruthlessly sounded in their ears. I am that dog fart Xiaohua you speak of. Xiaohua. Xiaohan turned pale with fright and shouted, You? Why aren't you dead yet? Because you aren't dead yet. Xiaohua's voice suddenly became extremely loud. It was like a thunderclap, shaking everyone's ears. It was also at this time that Xiaohan suddenly felt that there wasn't a trace of air around him. Even breathing was difficult. He didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly urged his qi to resist. However, not to mention that his qi seemed to have stagnated, it was extremely difficult to move. Even that righteous qi didn't appear from the void. The strangest thing was that a sharp gust of wind suddenly appeared in midair, as if an invisible meteorite was falling from the sky. At this time, how could Xiaohan not know that this was Xiaohua's method? As he shouted, he hurriedly waved his coiled dragon spear to resist. Hong. Qi waves suddenly rolled. Not only Xiaohan, even the area several li above the wandering dragon sect's people showed abnormal signs. The powerful divine sense hammer was pressing down. It was several times more vicious than falling star. Xiaohan let out a blood-curdling scream. The coiling dragon spear in his hand was smashed into pieces. Although the coiling dragon robe was surging with inscriptions, and a vivid and lifelike coiling dragon flew out from the coiling dragon robe, Xiaohan's strength was only at the intermediate 4th grade of origin energy. He was even inferior to Taoist Master Chu Feng, so how could he withstand Xiaohua's furious attack? The coiled dragon howled and turned into inscriptions that were destroyed. As Xiaohan's flesh and blood flew out, the shadow of the primordial spirit just appeared. Pa! A crisp sound rang out, and it burst like a bubble. Xiaohan, a Confucian cultivator with the status of a master, didn't even see Xiaohua's face. He didn't even have time to use many of his methods before he died. Since Xiaohan was like this, how good could Wandering Dragon Sect's disciples be? Hundreds of disciples were turned into minced meat. Flesh and blood flew all over the sky. It was an extremely bloody scene. Xiaohua's attack was too swift and fierce, and his methods were even more unfathomable. All the Confucian cultivators were completely stunned. No matter what realm he was in, they seemed to have completely forgotten their purpose as they stood in the air, watching the falling blood mist. Run! In the silent sky where only the mountain wind could be heard, someone suddenly shouted. The entire deathly silent scene suddenly came to life. Demonic beasts and flying horses neighed, countless noble qi roared, and inscriptions crazily surged. Thousands of Confucian cultivators fled in all directions like headless flies. Anyone can leave. Xiaohua's majestic voice once again resounded in the air. Only you can't leave. You actually dared to attack this old man's disciple in front of this old man. You must be tired of living. When the Confucian cultivators heard this, they were all scared out of their wits. One by one, they desperately urged their true qi. At the same time, they secretly wondered if they had hurt the Black Wind Ridge's disciples just now. Woo! The wind rose again, and a nascent soul stage hand of several acres in size suddenly flew out from the distance, grabbing at the Changfeng Pavilion's disciples. Damn it! Zhang Zhanghong's heart suddenly jumped. How could he not know that his attack on Li Xiang was seen by Xiaohua? He secretly cursed and clapped his hands. Two colored true qi gushed out, and a medium-sized subbody quickly appeared on top of his head. Moreover, Zhang Zhanghong threw his hand, and layers of inscriptions appeared on the long spear. The whole spear began to expand, and when it fell into the subbody's hand, the long spear was already dozens of feet long. Unfortunately, Just as Zhang Zhanghong's subbody condensed, Xiao Hua's nascent soul stagehand had already fallen. Kaboom! Kaboom! An obscure sound was heard. The space where Zhang Zhanghong was located had already been imprisoned by Xiao Hua's big hand. Not only was Zhang Zhanghong's subbody on the verge of collapse under the pressure of a vast force, the layers of inscriptions inside the subbody shook violently. Dozens of disciples who were slightly closer to Zhang Zhanghong were also standing in the air, unable to fly even half an inch. Destroy! At this time, Xiao Hua had already flown a few miles away, and he coldly growled. Boom! Zhang Zhanghong's subbody collapsed with a loud bang. Countless inscriptions scattered and disappeared in the air. The long spear was also bent by Xiao Hua's big hand within the inscriptions. Puff, puff, puff. A burst of oppressive sounds of flesh and blood exploding incessantly rang out. Masses of blood were like flowers blooming in winter, tragically blooming. As the rest of the fleeing Confucian cultivators fled for their lives, some of them still paid attention to the situation behind them. Seeing this, all of their faces turned ashen. Their hearts trembled in fear, and they secretly prayed that Xiao Hua wouldn't start a massacre again. Buzz, buzz. Just as everyone was shocked, layers of fine thunderbolts suddenly appeared in an area of more than 10 miles to the left of the Black Wind Ridge. Accompanying the thunderbolts were layers of green silk invisible to the naked eye. This green silk fell on the Confucian cultivators, and they all hugged their heads and growled. Their figures rapidly fell, and then the thunderbolts appeared again. Crack, crack, crack. They hit everyone, and at the same time, there were waves of screams. It wasn't until thousands of cultivators fell to the ground that Xiao Hua's figure slowly appeared in the sky above the Black Wind Ridge like a god. Master, Master, Master is back. The movement outside the Black Wind Ridge was clearly seen in the capital star array. Seeing such a wonderful method, how could the Black Bear spirit not know that Xiao Hua had returned? He was blessed by the heavens. Holding a small flag in his hand, he tore open the capital star array and rushed out, shouting in joy, ignoring the resentful gazes of the white lion and the golden eagle behind him. Xiao Hua looked at the obedient black bear spirit and smiled. It's been hard on you during this period. It's not hard. It's not hard. To be able to see Master return safely, this little one is happier than anything else. As the black bear spirit spoke, a few drops of tears actually squeezed out of his small eyes. Xiao Hua scolded in annoyance. If you're happy, then be happy. Don't go overboard. Master, I'm innocent. The black bear spirit hurriedly cried. People say that when relatives meet, their eyes are filled with tears. If this little one doesn't squeeze out some tears, it will make me seem distant from Master. Forget it. Xiao Hua smiled. This old man knows what you're thinking. You don't have to be like this. Yes, Master. As the black bear spirit spoke, Li Xiang activated the array flag in the capital star array below him and opened the array. The golden eagle, white lion, and the other demons flew out. Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei also followed behind Li Xiang and the others with smiles. Greetings, Master. The golden eagle and white lion weren't as thick-skinned as the black bear spirit. They didn't dare to get too close. They stood behind the black bear spirit and bowed in the air. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. All of you, get up. This old man has seen your hard work. This old man is confident about what I promised you earlier. When the time is right, I'll let you all start cultivating. Right now, the plan is to send these Confucian cultivators away. Since they've disturbed my Black Wind Ridge for so long, it's time to let them know the power of my Black Wind Ridge. Yes, this little one understands. The golden eagle and white lion were startled at first, then they were overjoyed. They kowtowed and said, "This little one thanks Master for his kindness." Then, the black bear's spirit waved his hand and said, "Little ones, let's go and kill this group of Confucian cultivators. I've been stifled for so many years. Kill." All the demons that swarmed out shouted loudly, as if the wounds on their bodies no longer hurt. Daoist Xiao. Only now did Li Xiang come over to greet him. Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei stood obediently at the side, their eyes filled with joy. They said softly, Disciple greets master. Xiao Hua looked at Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei, secretly happy in his heart. If it was in the past, the two of them would definitely rush to greet him before Li Xiang, but today, they were ranked behind Li Xiang. It must be because Li Xiang had imparted his strength to them, which caused them to be respectful. This kind of intentional action naturally showed the virtue of the two of them. And Xiao Hua nodded slightly. He looked at the few disciples around him and frowned at Li Xiang. He asked curiously, "This Xiao remembers that other than Xiong Yi, there are many Golden Core disciples who joined my fortune gate. Why didn't any of them come? Could it be that something went wrong? Also, even if they didn't come, there are still some late nascent soul cultivators who came. Why didn't they come? Why did they let you suffer here alone?" Haha. Li Xiang smiled mysteriously. Taoist Xiao is mistaken. Not only did Xiong Yi bring dozens of Golden Core cultivators to join my fortune gate, even Shui Mingzi, Ao Zhantian, and Prince Lan are here. Then, Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through the capital star formation and his frown relaxed. But then he became even more curious. "Fellow Taoist Li, what medicine are you selling in the gourd?" But when he saw Li Xiang's slightly furrowed brows, he realized something. Oh, this old man understands. Taoist Xiao is only thinking about one thing. There is another thing that Taoist Xiao has never thought of. Li Xiang said. He looked at the sun that was about to set and smiled. It seems that it's about time. Taoist Xiao should return to his cultivation cave first. Everything will be clear tomorrow. All right. Xiao Hua nodded. He glanced at the Confucian cultivator who was being chased by so many demons, then flew into the capital star formation. On the Black Wind Ridge, just as Li Xiang said, Xiong Yi, Chang Yu, Wu Tian, and the other Fortune Gate disciples were standing at the front. When they saw Xiao Hua return, they hurried to greet him and said, "Disciple greets master. Rise." Xiao Hua flicked his sleeves and looked at Xiong Yi with a smile. "You came up with this idea for Li, right? Master is indeed clever." Xiong Yi smiled. Disciple received Master's request and brought several junior brothers to the Black Wind Ridge. When I saw the situation in Jiang country, I knew that Master was right, so I made this arrangement. -13.